Hello, every pony, and welcome to Fandom Fridays, where we illustrate fanfics that are not pony related. Well, as you know, last week I had a little bit of a problem. It was called Von Doom. Today, I decided to do something enjoyable. You see, I figured in honor of Elements of Harmony, I would read for all of you a sort of prequel explanation of what happened to a certain terrorist organization slash before everything happened type of story. That's right. I am about to read for all of you the awesomeness that is Day of the Broken Fang. So, join us, won't you? Well, we here at the Treeberry Memorial Library am proud to present Day of the Broken Fang. Day of the Broken Fang by Arcade Striker JK5. Chapter 1. Gulf of Mexico, 1994. Cobra Commander leaned back, glad for the mask obscuring his face. He sat in the passenger side of a hydrofoil as it pulled into Cobra Island's northern docks. He closed his eyes, letting himself drift back a bit, back to before Cobra, before the mask, before meeting Destro, before finding Cobra La, and even before his brother's death. It drifted all the way back to a used cars lot, a wife and son who both left them. Cobra Commander, sir, we're here. Cobra Commander blinked, head whipping to his right. He looked out to the hydrofoil's canopy and spotted a Viper landing on the dock. Handed out threats. Yes, thank you, he said, grabbing the preferred hand and letting himself hauled up onto the dock itself. He looked down at the docks, spotting a number of empty berths. Cobra Commander spotted a Televiper holding out a clipboard and approached him. Televiper, where has half of our bug units got to? The Televiper straightened and handed over the clipboard.
Commander, they've been sent to the Mid-Atlantic on direct orders for Superter.
He saw as Cobra Commander glared around through his silver bow mask.
It's a military strike.
Cobra Commander looked over the information. I figured it's a military strike, he grasped. But the Mid-Atlantic? What does that buffoon want to attack? The Second Fleet? There's nothing out there besides that. The Royal Navy, or... He trailed off. Gears turned his head. Wait. Bugs were sent out, along with the eels. No real serpent forces in the force here. There isn't a force to attack anything on the water, but under the water is a mid... He suddenly shoved the clipboard back to the Televiper, turned, and ran back to the hydrofoil he just arrived in. Refuel and prepare for immediate departure! He hissed out to both the Viper who had helped him and the Lamprey pilot before turning once more and breaking out into a dead run for a nearby flight pod landing for him, in the front of the docks. He slid into the small one-man pod and sped through the free flight checks. Within moments he was airborne, flying southeast for the Terradrome. Memories dressed themselves up, despite every attempt to stop them. 1985. The silence among the ruins of the once lively town was the worst. Each crumbled building was a tomb. Cobra Commander wasn't even sure if anyone had managed to survive to be buried alive in any of the crumbled edifices. His tanks blasted into scrap, and dead Cobra soldiers littered the Market Street. A couple of crashed rattlers among the debris. He looked along, his right ankle twisted badly, with a piece of wood as an impromptu cane. The perpetrators of this massacre stood in a loose group just ahead. There were 4 of the larger ones and a half-dozen smaller ones, hanging out in the middle of the street in an almost casual manner. The big, boxy blue one was sitting on the still-smoking husk of a U.S. Army tank, casually bending the barrel back and forth with his hands. The 3 with wings on their backs and cockpit for chests stood off to the side, one of them occasionally firing off a shot at anything or anyone that was moving, and make sure it never moved again. The blue-colored one glanced his way, and Cobra Commander froze. His free hand strayed to the lizard pistol still in his thigh holster. His breath caught his throat as the others all looked at him, the smaller ones rubbing their hands together in sadistic glee. The blue one suddenly stood up.
Ravage! Rumble! Halt!
He said. A silver-colored, plain robot groaned. Let them have their fun, He screeched out. Autobots and more of the Earth's toy soldiers are showing up on my scanners, so it's good to have fun before the real work begins. The blue one shook his head.
Megatron wishes for there to be witnesses to what occurred here. At the moment, he is the best candidate to be this witness.
Oh, very well. He knelt down, staring down at Cobra Commander with glowing red eyes devoid of pity or mercy. Be very grateful, Blubberfuss. You shall be one of the ones to tell the rest of your old species of grease spears of the glory of the Decepticon Empire. He stood up. Decepticons, follow me! He said before flying up to the sky, the others following. Cobra Commander followed their flight, suddenly feeling very small and very aware of his place in the universe. 2 months later. Cobra Commander survived the remains of the His tank and Stinger Jeep units, some of them exploding before his eyes. Major Blood, take a note. From now on, all Cobra personnel have standing orders to flee on sight from all Decepticon and Autobot forces. It took about 30 minutes for Cobra Commander to land at the Terradrome, disembark, and find out where Serpentor was. He burst through the double doors leading to the genetically engineered warrior's throne room, rushing past guards and mostly up to the throne room where Serpentor sat. What did you do? Serpentor, always clad in a snake-themed armor, looked down at the commander, his expression one of confusion and building anger.
What are you blathering about, Commander?
Cobra Commander stopped just short of a small step of steps leading up to the throne room himself, and jabbed a finger at Serpentor. Did you or did you not authorize a strike against Decepticon's underwater base? And if you did, what in God's name were you thinking? Serpentor slowly stood up and walked down until he stood on the bomb step, towering over Cobra Commander.
You would do wise to control yourself in my presence,
he said, raising a gloved hand over the commander's helmeted head and clenching it. A low chuckle came from the commander. I take it that's confirmation. Serpentor nodded.
Of course. We have feared those overrated tin cans for too long, and it has cost us dearly in the eyes of the international community. It is time Cobra reasserts itself once more!
He finished by throwing his arms into the air. Cobra Commander stared down for a moment. So, would you mind telling me why now our weapons will succeed in killing them now? He placed his hands on his hips. Need I remind you, Destro and the Baroness left Cobra, or has that somehow slipped your mind and you're megalomania? Serpentor glared down, eyes dancing with an air of fire.
You would do well to rein in your tongue, but I shall forgive you this time.
He stepped off the final step, around Cobra Commander, and began pacing about the room, gesticulating with his right hand.
Scrap Iron and Dr. Mindbender have developed a new weapon system that, coupled with the bravery and skill of my soldiers, are sure to brace the Decepticon's defenses!
Cobra Commander slowly turned to watch him pace. A genetic engineer who was once an orthodontist and a mid-level engineer managed to accomplish what the best military and scientific minds of Earth failed to do without Autobot assistance! Serpentor turned to him.
They will push through and destroy them!
And then Cobra will be on the path of conquest once more! He jabbed a finger at Cobra Commander.
The path that you abandoned!
Cobra Commander stared at him. You've gone insane. Suicidal or both. He walked to the door. Enjoy your last few hours of life, he said over his shoulder, exiting the throne room. Serpentor stood there for a moment, mouth open in shock. He snarled and walked to the door, pace increasing with each step.
Cobra Commander, you will not leave here until you...
He reached the door and stepped out, but the commander was gone. He looked up and down the hallway, but there was no sign of him. Cobra Commander panted, and his chest heaved as he ran down the Terradrome's corridors, heedless of anyone else. He quickly arrived at his private quarters, running right inside and heading straight for an inconspicuous panel on the wall. He slid it open, revealing a safe. He unlocked it, reached in, and pulled out a small duffel bag filled to the brim with bank books, certificates of deposit, bonds, stocks, a forged driver's license, and all the documentation necessary for him to blend back into American society. Right beneath the bag was a pair of fixie frames that the commander had pulled out. The first one was of him and his brother, the day before the latter went to his first tour of duty in Vietnam. Whoop! Holy thick! Cobra Commander had a brother? I did not know that. The second was of his wife and young son, standing in the driveway of a used car lot he had bought and unsuccessfully tried to run. He looked at each one before unzipping the duffel bag and stuffing them in. And a wife and kid? Oh, I really gotta read the comics. A pair of Vipers suddenly entered the room, rifles in the hands and safeties off.
Cobra Commander, Lord Superstar has ordered your immediate detainment,
the first one said, raising his rifle and aiming at the commander with trembling hands. There was silence before the commander spoke. Have you heard? Saboteur has sent a strike force against the Decepticon's underwater base. The two Pipers stumbled back, lowering their rifles.
He what?
I wondered why the hell we were on lockdown at the announcement about some sort of meeting. The second Viper nodded. Explains the order for radio silence, too. She shook her head and tapped her helmet. Oh, man, this is not good. Cobra Commander spread his arms out. Well, every second that we stand here talking is another second for the strike force to be obliterated and the Decepticons to fly overhead and bomb Cobra Island back to the Caribbean. He walked forward, reaching behind his back and unplugging his laser pistol from its retard socket. Would you two care to join me in fleeing before we're all reduced to ash? The Vipers looked at each other, shrugged, and fell in behind Cobra Commander. The trio exited the room, made their way down to the corridor, but stopped as a group of battle android troopers, led by a pair of officers, approached. We might have to. One of the officers raised his hand and pointed at the commander.
There he is! Bats! Kill him!
The officer went for his pistol, but one of the Vipers cut him down with a burst of his rifle. Never did like that, idiot, she groused. The bats advanced, laser rifles firing. Two in the front suddenly exploded from friendly fire, but the machines kept marching on. The Vipers pushed Cobra Commander back, spraying fire into the bats. Aim for their guidance systems! Cobra Commander shouted, raising his laser pistol and shooting a bat in the chest. The android jerked back, laser rifle still firing and slicing through the heads of two others. Fall back! He shouted. We don't have time for this! The second officer aimed for Cobra Commander, but stumbled back as he fought several times in the chest and slumped against the wall. One of the Vipers pulled a grenade from his flak jacket, pulled the pin, and tossed it at the remaining bats. Fire in the hole! The three turned and ran as the grenade bounced and scared on the floor, coming to rest right at the feet of the bats. One of them looked down at a split second before it exploded, sending it flying back and showering the immediate area with shrapnel, concessive force, and flying androids' parts. Cobra Commander glanced at the pair as they continued running. I doubt that will be the last time to try stopping me. I have a flight pod ready to get me back to the docks, and hydrofoil that is hopefully all ready to get us out of here. One of the Vipers looked down. Us? Well, depending on your upper body strength, of course. He skidded to a halt as a pair of bats emerged and turned to him. Can you hang on to the side of a flight pod while I get us to the docks and our best means of escape? He asked while firing. One fire afraid a burst at one of the bats' heads. Well, between that and being immobile, I'll rub some Bengay on my arms after all this is over, she shouted. The second bat was dealt just as quickly. If there is an over, Cobra Commander muttered. The three reached the Terradrome's hangar soon after and were quickly airborne, the Vipers hanging out the side of the flight pod for dear life as it flew to the docks. It landed, and the Vipers were let go, dropping to their knees and clutching the sights of their helmets. Damn! Those are loud engines! What? I can't hear you! The engines were too loud! Cobra Commander exited the pod and grabbed them by their arms, hauling them to their feet. Get going! He shouted, tracking along the docks themselves. They quickly arrived at the waiting hydrofoil, the lamprey pilot inside, two others gathering around it. Cobra Commander glanced at them before motioning to the hydrofoil. Get on board! He hissed out. We have little time! What's going on? One of them, the Televiper from earlier, asked. Cobra Commander walked around him and climbed into the hydrofoil, the two Vipers following. That military strike you told me about? It's an attack against the Decepticons! The Televiper's jaw dropped. He jumped onto the front ship, clutching the forward-mounted missile launcher. Get us out of here! He shouted. Come on! Get going! He tapped his finger at the open ocean, his motions becoming more and more frenetic. The final two at the docks climbed aboard, and the hydrofoil shot off. The foil extended, and Cobra Island quickly receded in the distance. Cobra Commander turned to the lamprey. How fast can we go, and for how long? The lamprey checked the control panel. We can do 60 knots until our fuel runs out. He looked at Cobra Commander. My family was killed by the Decepticons. I've seen what they could do up close. That's one of the reasons I joined Cobra. One of the Vipers crawled over the hull and placed a hand on the lamprey's shoulders, squeezing gently. Hey, man. I'm sorry. The lamprey shouts back at him. Thanks. He went back to the commander. So, when the strike force raises the Decepticons, what will happen? Cobra Commander raised his arm and takes a straight shots. Well, if the information our Hoodhorn had was correct, the strike force that has reached their underwater headquarters. Serpenter said Scrap Iron Men on my bedroom were working on some weapon system, which undoubtedly made zero difference in their destruction. Knowing Megatron, he will be displeased. Then he will act. And then, Cobra Island burns. Chapter 2. Deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean was the resting place of the Decepticon battlecruiser Victory. Built in 1984, it crashed in its maiden voyage and remained at the bottommost floor ever since. The Decepticons refitted and rebuilt it, converting the former starship into their primary base on Earth. Several nations had made attempts to attack it after its crash. Each one ended with them being driven off with massive casualties, while the Victory lay there, almost taunting them to try again. Several floating clouds of debris currently surrounded the base, the remnants of the Cobra strike team sent by Serpenter. Almost invisible bits of plastic, metal, and even human bone chips and fragments. The sharks swarm about the human remains, picking at any leftover chunks of flesh. Laser turrets and missile launchers retracted from their ray resistance, camouflaged lids domes sliding over them. Finally, a translucent force field surrounding and protecting the base faded and disappeared. Megatron, Decepticon leader, stood at the base's command center, watching the view outside on a giant monitor. He belted out a laugh and shook out his head.
That attack by that terrorist group was almost amusing,
he said, a feral grin on his mouth. He turned around and faced one of the other occupants of the room.
Soundwave! Send a message to stand down from battle stations. And excellent work on getting those force fields installed.
Soundwave nodded and walked to a console at the far bulkheads. Starscream, meanwhile, approached Megatron. I am rather perplexed by your good mood, Megatron. Those third-rate tin cans, pencil laser cans, might have managed some minor hull damage if the seals hadn't gone up quicker. Megatron chuckled at the Air Commander.
But they didn't, Starscream. It was an interesting diversion while we prepared for the retaking of Cybertron.
He turned back to the console in front of him and pressed a few buttons. A microphone extended, and he leaned down to it.
Scrapper! Report on the Amazon stores.
A raspy voice emanated from his speakers. You're not going to like it, Megatron. Our geothermal tabs have suffered a bit of vibration damage from the weapons fire, and about a dozen Amazon cubes lost stability and had to be drained, or else we would have had a nice big hole in the hull. Megatron's optic sensors blazed crimson. He let out an inaccurate yell and smashed his fist onto the computer console, denting it and sending out a small shower of sparks.
Joe's geothermal taps are one of the keys to our conquest of Cybertron. We need every single bit of energy for my plans to succeed. Those little blobs of flesh have the audacity to strike against our true masters.
He shook a fist in the air.
I shall not be denied my rightful place as ruler of the universe due to their antics.
Starscream crossed his arms in front of his chest and smirked.
Well then, almighty Megatron, what would you have us do against them? Shall we send a message?
Megatron turned and aimed his fusion cannon at Starscream's head. The aperture glowed for a moment before he loaded.
No. As much as it pains me to say this, you're right. A message is needed to be sent to the humans, as well as to the Autobots. It is time to make the humans fear us once more.
He turned back to the slightly damaged console and stood over it once more.
All Decepticons, this is Megatron speaking. All projects and operations are currently suspended. Ramjet, report to the command center immediately. The rest of you, stand by for further instructions.
He pulled down a lever, and the screen's image suddenly turned to static. A high-pitched humming started as transport communication arrays sent out signals for the fastness of space.
Cybertron, come in! Cybertron, come in!
The image partially resolved to show the head and shoulders of Shockwave, Cyclopedian guardian of Cybertron.
Shockwave here, Megatron. What is your command?
Shockwave, I need you on Earth as quickly as possible.
Shockwave's single optic flashed and brightened.
But Megatron, the current plans for consolidation of our territory are pushing out.
They can be put on hold if you want. Put Straxus in charge until you return. But I need you here, now!
Shockwave bobbed his head.
I shall ready the space bridge and be there within 10 minutes. Shockwave out.
Images of him suddenly went out of focus and was replaced by one of Cybertron itself. Megatron turned to the other Decepticons in the command center.
Ready yourselves for battle! We go to reclaim our honor, and to make sure nothing interferes with the opening stages of our conquest of the universe.
A door near the back opened and Ramjet walked in.
Yeah, Megatron!
Megatron motioned for him and Soundwave to come closer.
You and Soundwave have a very important part to play in this, Ramjet.
He outlined his plan to the Seeker and his communications officer.
Do you understand?
Ramjet starts his test, right below an intake vent.
I shall not fail you, Megatron!
He spun around and marched off, but a sudden noise to his right distracted him, sending him headfirst partially through a bulkhead.
I'm okay!
He pushed through the bulkhead, but his hand remained stuck. A little help here? Starscream chuckled as Soundwave and Thundercracker each grabbed one of his arms and pulled him out.
Oh, well, this plan is off to a great start.
Megatron scowled and smacked Starscream in the arm, sending the Seeker tumbling down.
All they need to do is follow my orders. This day will be the last one for Cobra, and the first of a new age for the Decepticon Empire.
The Caribbean was calm, almost eerily so. The water was smooth, glass-like, with the barest hints of a breeze. That suited the laboratory pilot just fine, as he pushed the hydrofoils engines to their limits. The foils flew through the wire, pushing the hull up as the hydrofoil was pushed to its engineering limits. Cobra Commander and the 4 Vipers sat in the aft. The Commander sitting in the rear gun turret, while the Vipers were clustered around the engine. The Televiper was upside down in the co-pilot's seat. The panel in front of him was open, and a tangled mess of wires trailed down and commanded, some connected to his backpack. He split the 2 wires together and thumped the casing. A low-pitched humming started up, and he plugged the headset into an outlet.
Commander! I've made contact with Silent Castle!
He shuffled around his seat until he was partially upright and held the headset up to the sky. Commander climbed out of the turret and over to the co-pilot's position. He leaned over it, grabbed the headset, and slid it over his helmet, whining as far as possible.
Hello? Hello? Yes, Destro, it's me, Cobra Commander.
He paused.
Yes, it really is me. No, this isn't some prank call. How could it be a prank call over this frequency?
He shook his head.
No, there are no others here.
He sighed, his head drooped, the helmet lightly bumping against the hull.
Oh, very well. My favorite song for the 70s is One is the Loneliest Number by Three Dog Night. Are you satisfied?
The 4 Vipers exchanged glances. You know, I can actually see it, one remarked. You know, so do I. I really can. Cobra Commander glanced back at them before speaking once more.
Now that I have embarrassed myself for your amusement, I can now tell you that Servitor has launched an attack without my knowledge against the Decepticon's underwater headquarters.
The Commander winced as the tiny swearing in multiple languages assailed him, audible even to the lamprey. Cobra Commander tucked his legs forward and maneuvered into a safe position.
Fascinating. I think he's swearing in dead languages. Destro! Destro! Calm down! Listen, calm down, will you?
He paused and shrugged.
Well, okay, I panicked too. But I had time to... Destro! Neither you, the Baroness, nor your newborn son have that luxury. Okay, good idea. Yes. All right. Hope to hear from you later.
He leaned back slightly.
Why, you're welcome!
He tapped the headset of the earpiece.
Didn't even say goodbye.
The lamprey looked over. Commander, what's the plan? I think we can make Florida, but I don't think it's a good idea for us to try and rent a dock in this.
Commander nodded. You're right. That's why we were going to scull her and ride off in the life raft.
He held his right arm off and pointed to his wristwatch.
This is a Brilliant Emergency 2. It has an emergency beacon that, once triggered, pretty much guarantees rescue within 24 hours.
He motioned to everyone there.
Perfect for some poor fisherman who had the misfortune to get strafed by the Decepticons during their roaring rampage. Wouldn't you say?
The Vipers all looked around, nodding.
Okay, that's probably the best plan,
The female Viper said. She motioned to her helmet.
but I'm guessing all our gear's gotta go.
She reached under her visor and undid a sit strap. The silver plate slid down, revealing a woman in her late 20s with light skin, freckled cheeks, and brown eyes. She pulled off the helmet, revealing short brown hair plastered to her head by sweat.
My name's Mindy, she blinked. Okay, that was weirder than I thought.
The other three Vipers quickly removed their visors and helmets. The Viper who fought alongside Mindy revealed dark skin, focused brown eyes, and black hair shaped close to the scalp.
Jack,
he said, nodding to everyone. The two Vipers turned to dock, both unmasked. The first one had lighter shade hair than Jack, curly brown hair, and blue eyes, and white grin.
The name's Bobby,
he said, extending a hand to Mindy. Mindy looked down at the hand before looking up at Bobby.
We're in a fight for our life for giant killer robots who outmasses our entire planet's military, and I still have my rifle,
she said, patting her weapon with glary daggers. The Viper reached over and smacked Bobby on the head. He was larger than the others, green eyes, a shaved head, modest scarring on the right cheek.
Name's Rick,
he grunted out. The tail Viper pulled off his goggles and raised his arms, waving about.
My name's Percy,
he said, grinning. Mindy, Jack, Bobby, and Rick all looked at Percy, dead to each other.
So, nice scars.
Motioning to Rick. Rick leaned back and grinned.
I went to toe with Roadblock,
he said, thumping his chest. Bobby snorted.
You mean you stabbed him with a knife, but he grabbed your hand, crushed it in his own fist, and punched you in the face with your own broken hand, right?
I want to see that. Rick growled and shook his fist at Bobby.
You swore to never tell anyone that!
He started to rise, but the hydrofoil rocked, sending him back down into his butt. Lampreys raised his arm and waved it about.
The name's Antonio, but I'll keep my mask on for a moment. I can't take it off and keep to push the answer to his limits. I can't say I was from Brooklyn, at least, until they came.
Everyone looked at Cobra Commander. He let out a chuckle.
I suppose you're all waiting to see the horrors hidden beneath the mask. The mutations done to me first by the spores, then by Globulus when I returned.
He stood up, steadying himself by the gun turret. He slid open a panel on the side of his helmet, revealing a small keypad. He pressed a few buttons on the helmet, and he let out a hiss. The faceplate slid away and pulled off the blue helmet. Mindy, Jack, Bobby, and Rick all stared at the commander. Mouths open.
I don't believe it,
Jack said, eyes wide. You look so normal. The commander stood there, short brown hair rustling slightly in the wind. He had a small mustache, neatly trimmed. His skin was pale, but free of any scarring or markings. His eyes were somewhat clouded, but other than that, he looked almost unremarkable. He slid out a pair of sunglasses from his shirt pocket and pulled them on.
You've heard the story about me being an ex-scientist from Cobra, correct?
I didn't know as he barked a laugh.
A fantasy concocted by Globulus. I stumbled upon Cobra during a trek around the world, and their leader saw me as the perfect way to wreak vengeance on humanity. But he couldn't send out a human to do his dirty work and maintain his public image. So he fabricated the whole story. He shook his head. Truth be told, before Cobra, I was a used car salesman.
Jack leaned back. Well, you sure know how to sell someone on something, that's for sure. Bobby tilted his head to the side. But, were you there and turned into a snake? He waved a hand at Cobra Commander. And then the Baroness turned you back, but only part way? He looked around. Any of you around back then for that?
Let's just say I spent a lot on plastic surgery and bleeding and genetic therapy,
Cobra Commander replied. He slowly leaned forward and adjusted his sunglasses.
Oh, God.
Everyone looked back, following his gaze. A long, thick plume of smoke reached up from the sea, and the horizon was turning orange.
Is that Cobra Island?
Percy asked. Cobra Commander snorted.
What's left of it?
The whole of Cobra Island was awash with rumors, hearsay, and general mumbling. Communications blacked out had set everyone on edge. The work crew in the airfield's control tower went about their work as best as possible, but nerves were frayed and almost to the breaking point. What work was being done was interrupted when Serpentor's voice suddenly boomed out over the intercom.
Cobra! Your time of dominance is at hand! Even as I speak, a strike force has been launched to show the world that we will be not cowed into submission! The Decepticons hide below the waves, but we shall show them our mettle and...
One of the officers dropped a clipboard.
The Decepticons! He lost an attack against them!
He stumbled back, slamming against the wall and clenched his left arm.
Oh God! Oh God! Oh God!
The Viper spoke up.
Well, if Lord Serpentor thinks we can take them out, then we can take them out!
Until the Viper stood out from his chair and turned to the Viper.
Are you nuts? There's no way!
Hey, what's that?
Another Viper said, pointing out to the bay windows and a white speck in the sky. The Televiper sat back down, but the speck quickly grew into a white jet with red wings. He opened his mouth, but any actions or words he might have said were lost as the jet slammed onto the tower, blowing it apart. The jet suddenly pointed its nose cone into the sky, and the cockpit opened, releasing a tiny blue cassette recorder. The recorder grew, transforming into Soundwave. He landed on the main runway, feet crushing the tarmac beneath. He straightened up and watched over, even as Cobra's soldiers ran away from him.
Jamming successful,
he intoned.
Beginning hacking of Cobra computers.
Bullets and RPGs pinged off his armored chassis, not even marring his finish. He turned to the general direction of the weapon's fire and blasted at it with his concussion rifle, flinging soldiers back like rag dolls.
Hacking completed. Beginning download of all relevant files.
His shoulder-mounted multi-barrel rocket launcher swiveled and locked onto the three main hangars. It fired, sending almost a dozen rockets screaming at each one, blowing them apart and setting them ablaze. He continued walking down the runway, firing continuously at parked night ravens, rattlers, and any vehicles or humans he spotted, and determined to be in operable condition. Within minutes, the runway was one long strip of burning vehicles and dead men. A pair of his tanks rolled up, shooting at Soundwave with 30mm automatic cannons, but doing little, if any, damage to the Decepticon. He raised his concussive rifle and fired, blowing open their transparent canopies and destroying their weapon turrets. He turned from the bolt of burning hulks as Ramjet flew over and transformed into robot mode.
Operation successful.
Ramjet's arms mounted laser cannons fired. Car retrenches in the runway.
Not until the whole island's like this!
Soundwave reached up with his free hand and touched the pedal on his hand. A pair of antennae sprouted.
Megatron, one ray destroyed. Air Force has been obliterated. Cobra computer systems hacked. I am transmitting data concerning the location of all those bases, outposts, and safe houses.
The docks were in a similar situation to the airfield. Rumors and hearsay flying about. Mild tremors shook the piers. Most there paid it no mind, until a second one jostled the area. The tremors shook the buildings, sending anything not secured to the ground. A pair of eels at the end of one of the docks fell back, landing on their scuba tanks rolling to the sides. They struggled to their feet, just as 6 robotic titans emerged from the depths. They had no time to process or do anything before the largest. A giant turtle turned and raised his forelegs, sending them crashing down into the dock, obliterating and sending both eels. The Seacon subgroup continued on, fanning out and bringing their weapons to the ready. Snaptrap, the leader, transformed into robot mode. He raised his Adams Master gun and blowing apart a building, damaging 2 others. Overbite swam around the shark mode, biting hydrofoils in half and chasing down anyone who tried to escape through the water. Scour and Tentakill waded up onto the wharfs, crushing anything and anyone in their way. Seawing flew up to the air, transforming into his weapon mode and firing at anything he pleased. Wait a sec. Seacons? There's a group of Decepticons called Seacons? Only one thing to do in this situation. To the Transformers Wiki! Okay, I checked. I can't let you know.
There is a group called the Decepticons. They appear in Melee in the comics. That's why I love this universe. I find out so much more about the guys I love. An ammunition depot detonated, blowing apart a small building and setting part of the wharf sinking into water. Several fuel depots exploded, reducing what was once left to a burning hulk. Oil leaked into the water, sparks igniting it and turning it into ribbons of the flame along the wire. Snaptrack paced back and forth, shooting almost randomly into the configuration. He suddenly turned and looked around. Hey! Run the slave's not a leader! The four other Seacons looked around. Tentacle finally pointed out to the water with one of his limbs. Oh, there he is, he said. A giant turquoise lobster thrashed about in one of the shallows, his claws snapping out into thin air. I'm all right! I'm fine! Not later shouted. Overbite swam up to him and pushed him onto his belly before swimming off. Not later transformed into robot mode, firing his triple crusher cannon at Bug and turning it into Snap. See? I've helped! Snaptrack's oxygen burned a bright yellow. Just to the side of his head, a small antenna extended. Yeah, Snaptrack's Megatron. The docks have been destroyed. Coastal lead on Cobra Island. 2 miles from Cobra Island, Megatron and a large force of Decepticons floated in midair. Soundwave and Snaptrack's messages played, and Megatron rubbed his fists together, producing sparks.
Excellent. Excellent.
A small panel on his bucket-shaped head flashed.
This is Megatron to all units. By now, you have received Soundwave's information. Proceed with your phase of the operation, and try not to enjoy yourselves too much either.
He pointed off at the island in the distance, smoke and fire already visible.
Scramble! Scramble!
Downtown Manhattan. Yes, that's what I meant. Manhattan, not Manehatten. Wrong. Awesome continuity. Wrong fic. My apologies. I slowed down somewhat for lunch. The streets packed with people, cars, vendors, and pigeons. It was organized chaos of the finest kind as people went about their business, doing what they set out to accomplish. Then, rubble and frenzy dropped out of the sky, landing in front of the extensive Enterprises building. Laserbeak, meanwhile, flew around the top, laser cannons primed and itching to be fired. The crowd around the building paused, staring slack-jawed at the Decepticons. They all suddenly turned and ran, screaming and shouting. A few pulled out cell phones, calling out 911 or their local police. Rubble looked at Frenzy. Was it something we're saying? Frenzy simply turned and walked up to the building. He tested his legs for a moment before flying up along the face of it. The air around him shimmered as internal mechanisms generated concentrated vibrations aimed dead ahead. The windows warbled and warped, quickly imploding and sending thousands of razor-sharp shards inward and slicing apart those inside. Those not killed instantly were unfortunate, were instead condemned to a somewhat slower and more painful death as the sonic attack caused massive internal injuries, liquefying their organs. Frenzy slowed as he reached the top, floating over to his left and dropping down to the face of the skyscraper and repeating the process. Rubble shook his head. He walked toward the entrance, ripping apart the doors and tossing them inside. A platoon of Crimson Guardsmen, the elite of Cobra, were there in the main foyer, rifles trained on them. At once they fired, sending out a withering hail of 7.62mm rounds. They pinged off of Rumble's chassis, leaving tiny dents in it. Hey! That stings! He shouted. He ignored them for the time being and raised his arms up. He rested out on hinges and expanded, plating sliding over them. Drums slid over his heads. Time to bring the house down! He shouted, slamming his thrones into the floor. The entire building shook. Plaster and drywall fell from the ceilings. Walls split open and collapsed in on themselves, while great cracks split the floor. Guardsmen broke ranks. Some of them buried under debris, while others were swallowed up by the holes in the floor forming beneath their feet. A few tried to flee, but were quickly boxed in. Rubble's arms transformed back into limb mode. He reached behind and detached his back-mounted laser cannons from their mounts. His sensors picked out the load-bearing structures and support columns, already weakened by his pile driver pounding. He fired his laser cannons, sweeping them back and forth as well as up. Crimson energy beams sliced through not only the building, but any guardsmen still alive.
Laser Flake flew in a figure-8 pattern above the expensive Enterprises building, keeping tabs on the helipad and a single helicopter. He halted as the door opened, and the Crimson Twins, Tomax and Samsot, ran out. He angled down and swooped in, laser cannons firing at him. Tomax managed to direct the opening volley, but Samsot caught a blast right in the chest. He fell back, smoking a hole where his heart was once. Tomax tumbled to a halt, clutching his chest with one hand, while the other reached for the sky. His eyes flashed, and his mouth opened in a soundless scream. Laserbeak chuckled eternally as he fired once more, putting Tomax out of his misery with one shot. He strafed the roof a few more times before flying down, taking his time and shooting at the exposed superstructure, and slicing through the support beams. He joined rubble and frenzy in one of the towering buildings. The windows had all been blown, and there was an ominous groaning from the inside. Bits and pieces began falling off, tumbling to the ground and crashing to the concrete below. Frenzy looked the structure over.
I think we're done here,
he said, his head slowly set around.
Sick. My senses are picking up approaching humans. I am also detecting Autobots. How did they get here so quickly?
Rubble scratched his head.
Wait, don't they have a small base here? I thought it was in the Bronx.
Frenzy waved him off.
Whatever. We're done here.
He raised his arms and flew off, Rubble and Frenzy following suit. In a few minutes, the extensive Enterprises building collapsed in on itself. The top floors pancaking down on top of each other. A huge dust cloud bellowed out, engulfing the carnage, the streets, and the people there. Buzzer, Thrasher, and Ripper wore through the thwarted Everglades in their fair ATVs, ripping up the swamp. They had no destination in mind, so all three drove as fast and reckless as possible. Buzzer would casually swipe at the bushes with his chainsaw, laughing maniacally. Their fun was interrupted as the canopy above was ripped to shreds. Ripper's mouth dropped as 7 robotic insects poked their heads through the gap in the foliage.
What the hell are you blokes doing here?
One of the Decepticons, Ransack, spoke up.
Yeah, you don't look very filling, do they?
Shrapnel's mandibles clicked together.
Think of them as appetizers, appetizers. The main course awaits.
Buzzer reached over, fumbling a bit before he grabbed Ripper's arm and tugged it.
Mate, I think we...
The Decepticons flew over the hole of the canopy, swarming over the dreadnoughts. There was a sound of eradicated weapons fire, muffled screaming, then the tearing of metal and crunching. Within a few minutes, the 7 left the area, flying through the swamps on the way to the Dreadnought's North American headquarters. Venom tilted his body and knocked himself onto the shrapnel as he flew.
Oh, we're berry morsels. I expended more fuel than what I got out of it.
Crickback looked up to the rear.
Don't worry, boss. Our target may have a crunchy outer coating, but inside is a nice, chewy center.
That is just creepy. Superstar adjusted his battle armor and raised his weapons. His air chariot floated out before him in his throne room, fully fielded and armed. He stepped onto the chariot, grabbed the controls and swung it about. The terror dome shook, but he paid it no mind as he immediately prepared for the glory of battle. Dr. Mindbender suddenly burst into the room, monocle flying away from his face.
Lords, but,
he shouted, voice rising with each one.
The docks have just been destroyed. We have no way off of Cobra Island. The Terradome's radar has been picked up by multiple Decepticon signatures in our airspace.
He dropped to his knees, eyes were failing.
We're doomed!
Servitor clutched his fist and waved at Mindbender.
Bah! Pathetic! This was what I was born to do, Mindbender! What you created me for! I shall go forth, rally our forces, and beat back the Decepticons! This I can boom!
A violet laser blew through the ceiling, vaporizing both Mindbender and Serpenter. The entire room was destroyed mere seconds later, as the Terradrome's internal weapons stores and field detonated, ripping the fortress apart. Shockwave, hovering in space cannon mode under the fiery ruins of the Terradrome, fired several more shots at Cobra Island. He transformed into robot mode as Megatron flew over.
Terradrome destroyed, Lord Megatron,
he said, saluting the Decepticon commander. Megatron's optics took in the destruction. Cobra Island had been reduced to an inferno, fire blazing on almost every square inch of land. No building or man-made structure was left standing. The dormant volcano, remnant of the plan to create Robot Cobra Command Island, began shaking, cracks forming in it and lava seeping out.
Is there anything left living here?
He asked. Shockwave single object blast.
I do not believe any humans are left alive, Megatron.
Not good enough,
Megatron muttered.
I want the rock to flow, Shockwave. I want this island sent back into the water.
A panel on his head flashed. 2 minutes later, Soundwave flew over.
Soundwave, open a channel to all Decepticons forces.
The translucent panel on Soundwave's chest flashed.
Channel open. This is Megatron to the Decepticons. Continue bombardment of Cobra Island until Autobot or human military forces show up on scanners. To those destroying Cobra bases around the planet, do not linger on targets. I want this wrapped up as quickly as possible, so we may return to our primary goal, the retaking of Cybertron and the conquest of the universe.
He spun his right arm to the sky and fired a shot from his fusing cannon.
For the Decepticon Empire!
G.I. Joe headquarters was awash with news and activity from all over the world. General Hawk, along with Duke, Flint, and a few others of the command staff, stood in the main situation room, staring up at the main monitor. It showed a political map of Earth, with over a dozen red dots scattered about. The dots slowly grew in number as time went on. Several smaller screens showed news reports and images for satellites in orbits. Streaks of red and purple circled the globe, the red chasing the purple, but always trailing behind. Hawk placed his hands on his hips, and glanced down at Breaker and Dial Tone, seated in front of the monitor.
Oh, my God. They're here in bases we didn't even suspect of existing.
Breaker looked up from his keyboard and touched the side of his helmet. We're getting reports of Autobots trying to chase down the Decepticons, but they've got limited air power, and the cons are simply going in, blowing the hell out of everything, and they're going off. It's not like anything we've really seen from them. Flint shook his head.
We got no real way to stop them either.
Truth be told, not a small part of me wants to send them a thank you card for what they're doing. Hawk looked over to the chief warrant officer, but hesitated before speaking.
I won't shed any tears over Cobra's mass, but those piles of scrap are pretty different about collateral damage. The civilians caught in their line of fire need to be protected.
He turned to close to Baker and dial tone.
Contact every single member we've got and get them here. Now! On duty, off duty, retire or what? I want every hand we can get within 18 hours. Get Joe Colton and his offensive team on standby if you can, but get them here as soon as possible!
He turned to Duke and Flint. I have a feeling we all better get ready for one long night ahead of us. It was past noon in Phoenix, Arizona. Staff Sergeant Blaine, Mainframe Parker, finished double-checking his gear. He had received a call a little over half an hour ago, and Nurse chewed at his guts as he made final preparations. A knock at the door of his apartment went unnoticed at first, but repeated pounding finally caught his attention. Okay, he shouted, hurrying over, opening the door. So, what's the Red-haired woman wearing an army uniform stood before him, a very familiar woman to Mainframe. She swallowed and fussed with her hair. She passed, putting a smile on her face. Next to her stood a girl who looked barely into her teens. She had dyed green hair, wearing a black t-shirt, ebony sleeves, and army boots. The woman held out her arms.
Mainframe! It's been too long, she exclaimed. You remember your old friend, Carol Wielder, right?
She asked.
She motioned to the young girl. And of course, my niece, Zoe.
Zoe raised her arms and waved Mainframe.
Hi,
she mumbled, barely audible. Carol stepped in, drawing her arms around Mainframe in a hug. She brought her mouth close to her ear.
Please, I don't know where else to go or what else to do,
she pleaded in a shaky voice.
I got a garbled call from Florida, then silence. I haven't been able to reach anyone there. Can you help us, please?
Mainframe closed his eyes for a moment. It might get me in trouble with my bosses, but all right, Zara. He looked to the young girl. And that is? Sarah broke the hug and wait there.
Mainframe, this is Zanya's. Sartan's daughter.
She went to Zanya.
Zanya, this is Mainframe. He is an old friend of mine, and I think he just saved our lives.
Chapter 3. It was a small cottage near the banks of the Loch Fegnar, Scotland. The rustic outside was rather rustic looking, with white walls and a thatched roof, and even a wagon wheel leaning against the side. Inside the cottage kitchen, James, Destro, McCullen, the 24th, and the Baroness Anastasia de Cobra sat at a table, watching a small black and white television on the kitchen counter. Both were wearing rather ordinary and nondescript clothes. Destro's mask on the table. Baroness cradled her and Destro's newborn son in her arms, and fed him as she and her husband stared at the news report concerning the Decepticon's rampage across the globe.
I cannot believe we must thank Cobra Commander for telling us of what that first Sympather did.
She looked down at the sleeping babe and gently rocked him.
Do not worry, little one. Mommy and Daddy are here.
She looked up at the television, eyes flashing behind her glasses.
We will not let anyone harm you.
Destro reached over and gently gripped his wife's forearm.
And I will not let anyone harm you, my dear.
He looked up as an elderly lady placed a tray of food down in front of him.
Why, thank you, Margaret,
he said. He looked down at a plate of haggis, neeps, and tatties and smiled.
My favorite.
Margaret, owner of the cottage, smiled warm around.
Well, I remember from your youth, lad, Destro.
She looked at the Baroness and chuckled.
You and Destro could not get enough of my cookie when I was his nanny.
She walked to the counter, picked up another tray, and placed it in front of the Baroness.
I'm not exactly what your taste lean toward, but for that I apologize.
The Baroness waved her off.
Your culinary skill is commendable, Margaret.
She leaned over and inhaled deeply.
Truth be told, I'm famished.
She shifted young James around, cradling him with one arm while grabbing a fork, spearing some food and taking a few bites. She quickly finished off half the food on one plate, somehow never getting it on her cheeks and anywhere other than right into her mouth.
She's Baroness! She's awesome!
There was a knocking on the back door. Destro and the Baroness suddenly pulled out pistols, but Margaret held up a rolling pin and walked out to the door. She leaned over to the peephole and looked it through and opened the door. A younger man in glossy black armor stood there, briefcase in one hand and slugger sword in the other.
Grammy!
Thomas of the Iron Grenadiers said, reaching out and hugging Margaret with his free arm. Margaret returned the hug, throwing both arms around her grandson and lifting him to the air.
Look, Thomas, I'm glad you're right.
Thomas let out a grunt. His cheeks rapidly turned beet red.
Grammy, please!
You're cussing the armor and me inside it.
He let out a breath as she put him down and let go. Thomas stepped around Margaret, walked up to Destro and stood up.
Now, Destro, it is done.
He placed the briefcase on the table. I received confirmation from all large factories and Iron Grenadier units that they shall stand down and go to the ground until they receive your personal instructions to restart. Destro opened the briefcase. He looked through the papers there. Eyes occasionally drifted to the beryllium steel mask on the table.
Oh, you've done well, Major,
he said, standing up and placing a hand on Thomas's shoulder. Thomas's lips curled slightly.
Thank you, lad.
The Baroness looked at Thomas, then to Margaret.
I do not feel right putting you two in danger like this. If the Decepticons decide to target us, they'll simply flatten this house and the entire village.
Margaret crossed her arms in front of her chest and huffed.
I know you mean well, Baroness, but there's no way in hell I turn away Lord Destro or you in your time of need.
Thomas turned to her and popped his head.
Grammy is right.
My family has served Clan McCullen for generations. We do show out of loyalty, and not all too well.
Baroness bowed her head, looking down at young James.
Thank you both.
Thomas turned back to Destro.
If there is anything else, I'm going to stand guard.
With that, he stepped back, slid his rifle over his shoulder, and held it steady as he marched out the door and closed it. Destro grasped his chair and slid it close to his wife and son before settling down. He leaned close to the Baroness and looking down at his still sleeping James.
And now, all we can do is wait.
A small life raft floated next to the Cobra hydrofoil in the Caribbean. Cobra Commander and 5 others crowded into it. They were stripped of anything that could identify them as members of Cobra, wearing only plain clothes, life jackets, and a few essentials. Mindy and Jack still had their rifles to ward off any shark attacks. A small cache of supplies was stashed in one corner of the raft. There was a splash, and Antonio emerged from the wire. He pulled off his helmet and threw it off. "The set," he said, holding up his arm so he could be pulled off into the raft with assistance. He set his lamprey chute and tossed it overboard. "Then he's a safe charge to attach to that herd." He reached into a pocket, pulled out a small remote, and handed it to Cobra Commander. "Flip up the red switch, push the button, and the hydrofoil ends up at the bottom of the sea." Cobra Commander eyed the remote, then looked to the others.
"We're all set? Everyone has their fake ID ready?"
At their nods, he looked down at the remote, cradled it in his hands. His gaze drifted over to the hydrofoil, and then to the others.
"And so, Cobra ends with a small bang."
He flipped the switch and pressed the button. There was a muffled thud, and the wire rippled, rocking the life raft. The hydrofoil rocked and lifted slightly out of the wire, settling back down. Quickly slipped beneath the surface of the wire. Cobra Commander raised his wrist, unscrewed a tiny cap onto the side of the watch, and extended a thin wire antenna.
"There! The signal's been sent."
He settled back in the raft as it bobbed in the wire.
"Now, we wait."
Minty looked at the sky. By now, it was late afternoon, and the sun was heading down the sky. "Okay, so now we wait to get rescued, brought to the United States, and then what?" "I'll follow you anywhere, Cobra Commander. But after this, I think Cobra's finished." Jack nodded. "I'm with Mindy, Commander. You saved my life, but the Decepticons are probably turning every Cobra facility on the planet into a crater." Cobra Commander waved a hand and waggled his finger.
"First off, you all better start calling me Joe. I don't think Cobra Commander will fly with whoever rescues us. Second off, no. I will not make any attempt to rebuild Cobra. I like living far too much to try again."
He lifted the bag still slung over his shoulder.
"I do have a proposal for you six, though. You see, in here is a deed to the mansion in upstate New York. I bought it with cold, hard cash, completely untraceable by the Decepticons. I also have bank books, certificates of deposit, and access to enough money to live off of it for the rest of my life. However, it does need a staff."
He looked at each one of them.
"Know where I can get some help?"
Percy raised both arms in the air and waved them back and forth.
Me. I'll work for you, Joe."
Bobby and Rachel looked at him. They looked to each other before turning to Commander. "We're in," Bobby said. Antonio laced his fingers together. "I count me in." Mindy and Jack also shared a look before Mindy spoke up. "Like I said earlier, we'll follow you anywhere." Cobra Commander nodded and settled down on the raft.
"Good. Now, all we have to do is wait for rescue."
Silence descended among the 7 for a few minutes. Then, Percy finally spoke up.
"So? Anyone see Foreign Scum? I heard it's really good."
Mindy's eyes darted back and forth. She clutched the rifle to the body.
"So, 24 hours, you said?"
Zarna and Zaina sat in the living room of the Mainframe's apartment, while Mainframe talked to the phone in the kitchen. Zarna was still wearing her uniform, but pulled her wig off and pulled off her several appliances from her face. The television was on, showing in an almost endless series of news reports about the Decepticons. "Military units and emergency services have been unable to do much more to clean up after the Decepticons after they leveled some Cobra facility. Even the Autobots have had limited success with stopping their attacks." Just then, Mainframe walked in, receiver in hand and up to his ear. Yes, sir. Let them know. I'll keep the line open, too. Yes, goodbye." He turned off the phone and cleared his throat, getting Zarna and Zaina's assistant. Here's the deal.
We are sending a car from Nuke Air Force Base to pick you two up."
Zaina straightened up and looked to Mainframe.
"What?
Are we under arrest or something?
We haven't done anything wrong. At least, not today."
Zarna slowly rose to her own feet, placed her hands on his shoulder.
"Let him finish, Zaina. Besides, Barrett's jail cell didn't deny existence mercy of his cons."
She looked to Mainframe.
"So, is it an arrest?"
Mainframe looked at Roland. "Not at the moment, no. It really is protective custody.
At least for now. After, I can't say. Seeing Zara slid to the floor, she still flew across the floor. But Zara clamped an iron hand on her shoulder. Hey, what gives? Zara turned her head sharply and glared at her niece. You are not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. Not until we get a nice escort out of here that raises our chance of the survivor vote above close to nil. Seeing Baron teeth pulled back. Zara got Zara's grip. She tapped a finger in Zara's face. Don't tell me what to do, Aunt Sarna. I've got to get back out there. Dad and Uncle Xandar are... Young girl sucked in her breath and wiped her eyes. They're out there. We gotta find them, right? Her face scrunched up and snuffled. Eyes watery. Right? I mean, Dad had to escape, right? Zara glanced at the mainframe, who nodded. He leaned in close to her. If I hear any crashing, I'm running in, he said before walking to the kitchen. Zara smiled at him before turning back to waving at Zarna. She stepped up to her niece's side, grabbed Zena's chin, and forced her to look up. Hey, listen to me, Zarna, all right? Please. Just listen to me. She sucked in her breath. That call we got before heading here? That was Zartan. He and Xandar were trapped in the compound while the Decepticons were attacking. She closed her eyes. Zartan told me what's going on. Filled me in as those things were about to break through. Zartan told me flat out that they weren't... Listen to me, Zena! This isn't exactly easy for me. Zena set her eyes. Sorry, she mumbled. It's fine, kid. Now, he told me they weren't going to make it. He told me a few things. First was he loved me. Next was to tell you that he loved you. And the final thing was to take care of you. She placed a hand on Zena's shoulder and squeezed. And then, the line cut off. So here's the deal, Zena. I promised Zartan I'd take care of you. So I'm going to take care of you. And the first thing I'm doing is stopping you from doing anything stupid. Like going out and getting splattered all over the street. You get me? Zena sniffled, the tears flowing freely down her cheeks. She nodded and sobbing. Zara hated Zena. She screwed her own eyes shut and began crying as well. Mainframe glanced up as Zarna walked to the kitchen and dropped to the chair in front of the table. He grabbed a pair of water bottles from the fridge, placed one in front of Zarna, and sat down across from her. Is Zena all right? Zarna blinked and looked up to him. What? Oh, yeah. Well, as all right as can be. Mainframe nodded. And you? There was a pause before Zarna barked a laugh. Well, my brothers were killed and probably eaten by giant robotic insects older than our species. I'm with my niece who just lost her father after finding him about a month ago. And the best prospects we have for long-term survival is incarceration. She screwed on the bottle cap and drained half the bottle before slamming down the table. Could be better! Thanks for the flower, by the way. Do you have anything stronger? Lord knows I can use it. Mainframe shook his head. I think you're going to need all your wits about you when they come to pick you up. He stopped talking for a bit before waving a hand in the air. Listen, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. Don't. Sartana interrupted. She leaned forward and placed her arms on the table. I appreciate the sentiment, believe me. But I'm pretty positive in a week and a half the countries on Earth are going to declare today a national holiday. And to be honest, not like I can blame them. Hell, half of them creeped me out something fierce. I'm no angel, but some of them were pure demons from hell. The computer engineer hesitated for a moment before throwing his hands up. Okay, you're right. I'm not going to be losing sleep over Cobra's destruction. Whether they know it or not, the Decepticon did us a huge favor today. But as far as you or your brothers, I'm sorry about their deaths. Sorry nodded to him. Thanks. So my guess it'll be a couple of hours before anyone arrives for us from Luke. Zane and I haven't eaten anything for hours beyond a few candy bars. She rose from her chair and walked over to the fridge. She opened it up and closed it and began opening the covers at random. What's going on? Mainframe's eyes narrowed. Look.
Sarah turned to him. Well, I can't find any instant dinners. She pulled out both of carrots and shook them. It's like you cook for real. Mainframe chuckled and waved her off. I learned a thing or two from Roadblock over the years. There are some frozen dinners in the freezer. Zarna popped the freezer open and pulled 2 small cartons out. This is so domestic, she commented while popping 1 carton into the microwave. Mainframe shrugged. Well, better than the last time we met in Manila. What was it, a year or so ago? Zara nodded. I saved your life then. You shot me in the leg! Zara nodded. And Buzzer wanted to cut your head off. You cut off light. Not even a lip. Xena wandered in and sat at the table. Thanks, she said to Mainframe. For taking us in and getting us help. I mean, this don't hurt, Sana, or I'll cut your heart out. Mainframe smirked and shook his head. Tussing, but I'm Army Airborne. I'll do my best with Zarna. Xena stared at him a moment before slowly looking to Zarna. Well, the news reports are saying the Decepticons have struck down over 3 dozen Cobra locations worldwide. Some militaries have even tried fighting them, but they haven't had much luck. The Autobots haven't done much either. She looked at Zarna as he placed the newly cooked dinner in front of her. Sir, this is the best idea? Zarna sat down with her own dinner and began shoveling food from her mouth. Yeah, she said between a few bits. Good. Now eat. You'll need your strength. Xena looked down at the Salisbury steak, its mashed potatoes, grabbed a fork and ate. She looked to Mainframe and stared to Zarna. Then to Zarna as she looked right back. Oh, get a room, you two! Zarna's mouth twisted upward. Well, there was this one time in Budapest. Mainframe barked a laugh. Ha ha! You and I remember Budapest very differently. Sarah covered her ears with her hands. Never mind! Never mind! Ironhide knelt down and looked over the chunk of concrete before him. He and fellow Autobots Prowl and Jazz were Arcanis, second largest city in Lithuania. He gingerly grabbed the chunk, looked it over, and carried it over to another pile. After he cleared out the level remains of the former Cobra warehouse and garage. By now, it was early evening, and the sun was low on the horizon.
Arr! This is making my circuit sizzle,
he drawled out.
We're doing nothing more than cleaning up after those glitz heads.
Prowl, talking with a few officers of the Lithuanian land forces, looked over.
It's not like we have much of a choice, Ironhide.
He stood over to the grizzled bot.
Every single Decepticon can fly. They're doing a little more than flying in, dropping bombs, strafing aid to survivors, and flying out. It's not their usual tactics.
Jazz hefted a girder over his shoulder, the visor over his optics flashing.
Doesn't mean we have to like it,
he grumbled. The comm system suddenly turned on when it was close to dead.
Prowl, Ironhide, Jazz, come in,
said Optimus Prime, Autobot leader.
Prowl straightened up and pressed the panel to his chest.
Here, Prime.
Finish up helping up the Lithuanians as quickly as possible. I need you 3 in Washington, D.C. for a meeting with several of Earth's military and political leaders. The Decepticons' actions have forced a decision I have been mulling for quite some time.
The 3 Autobots exchanged looks before Prowl spoke.
Understood, Prime. We'll be there within 24 hours. Prowl out.
He closed the channel and looked around at the still smoldering pile of rubble. He turned to the officers he was speaking with earlier and, in perfect Lithuanian, said,
I am sorry, but we'll have to depart soon. Our commanders called us back to the United States.
One of the officers held out a hand.
We're grateful for what you have done already. Thank you.
His eyes turned to the rebel.
I almost wish to thank the Decepticons for what they did here. I would think a toast to the destruction of this viper's nest.
Prowl's optics flickered.
If the same thing happens to the Decepticons tomorrow, I get a tanker of Energon and drink a toast with you.
He admitted, more to himself than anyone else. Chapter 4. The small raft rocked in the water, waves sending it up and down. On the horizon, Cobra Island's death throes had begun, and were visible even from their vantage point. Dark haze hung over the island, and, even from as far away as they were, bolts of lightning could be seen. Percy clenched his stomach and was turning a bright shade of green. Oh, how far away were we from our island again? Rick looked up from around the raft as his nose wrinkled. Do we have gas mask here? Maybe we should have gotten something out the hydrofoil before scuttling it. Mindy leaned forward and pointed to a small orange sign in the sky, rapidly growing larger. Hold that thought, Rick. She tossed the rifle overboard. Never thought I'd say this, but thank God for the United States Coast Guard! A Zalorski M860 Jayhawk hovered over the wire, sending out ripples and rocking the life raft even more from the rotor wash. The sun had set and the stars and moon were out. Remember, Cobra Commander shouted over the din, we're fishermen who had their boats sunk by the Decepticons, and our boat's name is the Lucky 13. The helicopter's side hatch slid open, and a rescue mount and hoist started out. The crane lowered and a rescue swimmer basket to the raft, who guided each person into the basket was listened on to the helicopter. Within a few minutes, all 6 were aboard, and the Jayhawk was on its way to Florida. The helicopter crew began taking him over. So, what happened? Bobby spoke up. I don't know, man. We were just out fishing, and BAM! A bunch of those tin turkeys flew over and shot at our fishing boat. He waved in the arm while whistling, doing a bad imitation of a giant robot and stressing a favorite boat. I mean, I don't know what's left of them, you know? He elbowed Rick in the sides. You know? Rick glared at him and slowly nodded. Yeah, we know. Mindy spoke up. So, what's been going on? We've been cut off from the rest of the planet for about half a day. She flashed a nervous smile and looked around at the others, blinking rapidly. One of the crew shook his head. Oh man. It's just... I don't know what those yahoos on Cobra Island did, but it tipped the Decepticon sons of fierce. As in they're going around blowing up every single Cobra hideout they can find. God, what a bunch of idiots! Bobby opened his mouth, but Cobra Commander spoke up. Yes, the ones who did talk to the Decepticons were a bunch of idiots for whatever it is they did. He looked around at the others. Right? Antonio spoke up. Right, Joel. That was sense of them. The crew member nodded. Well, sure as hell was. Now when we get back to base, we'll give you each a checkup. But to be honest, unless any of you are in need of medical attention, well, the Decepticons wiped out the Dreadnought space in the Everglades and did a lot of collateral damage to surrounding areas. The Decepticons also bombed Cobra Island and set off some sort of volcanic eruption there. Hospitals are already swamped, and Governor Childs has declared a state of emergency for whatever comes next. He swallowed and looked away, cheeks colored red. Ugh. Sorry. Cobra Commander leaned back, finding the ears to grin. It's alright. I can't speak for my friends, but I feel fit as a fiddle. Jayhawk continued on his way, eventually reaching its home base and setting off its passengers and crew. A short series of medical checkups and a brief interview with the 7 followed, with them being released soon after. Bobby rocked back and forth on his heels as he exited the Coast Guard base. His eyes and head drifted as a dozen other ambulances screamed past, lights flashing. He shook his head. Damn! I'm not the nicest guy on the planet, but Silverton are fucked up good! He looked around at the others. Pardon my language. Mindy looked around, spying a newspaper vending machine. She ran over, slid 50 cents into a slot, and pulled out a copy of the Miami Herald. She choked out gas as she scanned the headlines and held it up for everyone else to see. Day of the Broken Fang? I mean, good lord. They took out everyone. Cobra Commander slid his hand, and Mindy handed the paper over. He read the articles on the front page and flipped back and forth between the pages. All these locations were ones listed in the Territo's computer banks. He handed the paper back to Mindy. Well, that sells it. Cobra really is finished. Even if I was suicidally stupid enough to try anything again, there'd simply be too little to restart it with. All I would have was be some guards and guardsmen scattered across the country. A few stragglers passed over at U6. No offense. Jack shook his head. None taken. Rick looked up at the night sky. So, I'm guessing we find some motel, get some shut-eye, then we figure out a way to get to New York within a reasonable amount of time. He held his hand as Bobby opened his mouth. And no, we are not taking a bus all the way there unless we have to. Bobby held his hands up in protest. Did I say anything? I didn't say anything. Cobra Commander spoke as he began walking down the path. eyes scanning every shadow and ears listening for any untoward sound.
We'll tire and play tomorrow. Then rent a private car to take us the rest of the way there.
Megatron and 2 other Decepticons flew through the air, making their way back to their headquarters underneath the Atlantic. It had been a good solar cycle for him. An enemy had been crushed under his heel, and the various species had been shown their true place in the world. Autobots had limited success against his forces, and Starscream had once tried to take command of the Decepticons. Soundwave flew up to his side.
Megatron, all forces report success. Cobra installations worldwide have been destroyed.
Megatron barked a laugh.
Excellent, excellent. Tell them to resume normal operations. Also, prepare headquarters for any underwater unpleasantness due to Cobra Island's eruption.
Soundwave nodded. He pressed the side of his head, but suddenly spoke again.
Megatron, I am intercepting unusual programs from the humans' internet systems. They may be of some concern to you.
Megatron's smile turned into a glower.
Send it to me,
he ordered. Starscream flew up and wagged a finger at him.
Are you sure, oh mighty Megatron? You might catch a virus or malware from one of their programs.
Megatron's optics burned a deep crimson.
I would have more to fear from your pitiful attempts to usurp my leadership than anything mere humans can concoct. Send me the program, Soundwave.
A small window opened, just to the side of his forward view. The images of the Decepticon symbol appeared, followed by bright blue text beneath it. Synthesized music began playing, upbeat and cheerful sounding. Megatron's field pump sped up as he processed the words and meaning behind what he was seeing.
Ecod, thanking me for destroying Cobra!
His eyes squeezed to the fist, and electricity crackled around them. Starscream tossed his head back and cackled.
So, the mighty Megatron can't handle some man-boys. Ha!
The thrusters in his legs ignited, setting him shooting forward as the docking tower emerged from the wire. Megatron glanced at his communications offer.
Take down this site, or physically destroy the servers that run this site!
He ordered. Soundwave's optic band flashed as he slowed down and oriented himself to touch down the tower's landing platform.
Yes, Lord Megatron.
Zarna and Zayna sat in the nondescript room in Luke Air Force Base. The pair's heart rate had dipped into the low hundreds, and their paranoia was only slightly lessened. The room they were in had a single table and 3 chairs. Zarna was no longer wearing the Army uniform, but her clothes were rather plain compared to what she usually wore. Zayna hunched over the table, head propped up by her left arm.
So, what do you think they're going to do to us?
Zarna's eyes started back and forth. My guess? They'll let us stew in here for a bit. Make us sweat. She waved her arm about mostly to the 4 gray walls. I don't even see any one-way mirror here. Just a single security camera in the corner. She waved to it and blew a kiss, winking. Zayna glanced at her and on before rolling her eyes. The door suddenly slowed up. An older woman and a pair of military police entered. My apology for the wait, she said, sitting down in the lone unoccupied chair. She set a briefcase on the table and opened up. We had to do together some legal documents for this. My name is Captain Senator McDonald. She sat, extending a hand to Zarna. Zarna stared down at the hand, blinking twice. Wait, what the hell? It's been, 10 minutes since we got here? She checked her watch. Wait, not even that! What are you doing here already? Sarah stepped back. All right, good. You're a servant. Yes, this is not a rush. She leaned forward and laced her fingers together at the table. To be honest, we're scrabbling hard right now. Cobra just got wiped out, and we have no idea what's coming next. We need as much intelligence as we can get, and that's where you come in. She pulled out a thick sheet of paper, laid it out in front of Zarna. Let me lay it on to you. You're the highest ranking of Cobra who's survived so far. There are a couple of fifers who are in ICU ward in Los Angeles, but that's it. There might be some units who escaped, but right now, you're it. She waved to the stack of papers. Sign these and you two get a new life. Zarna and Zayna stand in this room, and Carol Wielder and her niece Zoe Wielder walk out of this room. In return, you tell us everything you know about Cobra, and I mean everything. Zarna opened her mouth, but stopped as a young opened it, trying to escape. She clamped down on it, making faces that turned away. Don't. she said, jabbing a finger at Xena. She looked at Sarah. Listen, any chance I could have some coffee, please? Sarah turned around in her chair, looked at the couple of MPs. Please, get us some coffee and snacks. Sarah nodded her thanks. Okay, before I decide anything, I've got to ask. Are you pumping Destro, the Baroness, or Storm Shadow for your info? Because all three of them were higher up than I am. Sarah half smiled. They would, as you said. But all three of them have left the organization some time ago. She leaned forward. For all we know, Separate hid a division of bats outside of Johannesburg, or there's a backup weather dominator in the Andes. We need every scrap of information we could get our hands on. And that's where you come in. We need to know where you've been, what you've done, and what you've seen others do. Sarah's eyes drifted down to the papers. Can I look that over first? Sarah slid it over to her, along with a pen. Sir, I think you'll find everything in order. Zarnos nodded as he read the rest of the papers. After a few minutes, she picked up the pen, signed her name to the last piece of paper, and slid it back to the table. This looks like the best chance we got. She let out a sigh. So, where do you want me to start? It was night in Kentucky, and for one married couple, the end of a long day. Megan and Mike Richards were at home with their one-year-old daughter, Danielle, sitting in the living room on a couch, watching CNN and the latest in a seemingly endless series of reports about the worldwide Decepticon attacks. Megan's younger sister, Molly, was there as well, sitting in a recliner. Molly shook her head. We've been worried about his tanks rolling out the street in that nutjob servitor, and those tin cans can take care of them for us. She looked to Megan. They let me out of veterinary school early because of this. No one knew there was some secret Cobra base nearby, or just something waiting to be blown to smithereens. Mike nodded. His arm was around Megan's shoulders, clutching her close to him while Danielle sat on Megan's lap. Sounds like with work, he groused. Lost half a day's pay because of this. He paused and threw his other hand into the air. Good Lord! People are dying out there, and that's what I'm concerned with! Molly shrugged. It's for your family? Mike let out a sigh. He nodded to Molly. He looked at the clock on the wall and groaned. Gotta get early for bed. Early day tomorrow to make up for last time. He leaned over and lightly kissed Megan. Love you. He then bent his hand and kissed Danielle on top of her head. I love you too. Megan sighed as Mike rose and walked out of the living room. We'll be up in a few minutes. I love you too. She waited for him and walked up the stairs before turning to Molly. Sam, how do you think they'd react? Molly blinked a few times. What? Who? Megan rolled her eyes at her younger sister. You know, the ponies. Ponyland. She laid down and bent Danielle on her knee. Would you like to make the ponies? They would love you. Molly not shied. I don't know. Considering the world they lived in, they've dealt with danger and death all the time. Heartthrob or Celestia might have fainted, but Wind Whistler or Rose Dust, they probably seemed just as bad. Megan nodded, staring past the television. Wonder what they're doing now. Molly's eyes shifted from Megan to the spot she was staring at. Not a clue. She rose to her feet. Well, I gotta get going too. Dane's therapy appointment was rescheduled for tomorrow, and he needs her out there. She turned once more to the door, but stopped and looked at Megan. You alright? Not going to jump over any rainbows, are you? Megan snorted. I'll do that once, Molly. Once. She waved her sister on. Go on, Molly. Good night. Molly spat at her. Alright. I'll be back tomorrow morning to pick up Danielle before going to get Dee. Say hi to Mike for me, she said before walking out the front door. Megan waved after her. Bye, she said to empty air. She gently picked up Danielle and stood up. Well, Mommy's a good little girl who's had to get to bed and get ready for work. And play, too. She held Danielle close as she walked to the stairs. Molly's right. It's not like we even knew how the rainbow braids opened in the first place. She rocked Danielle a bit before fussing. Although, if you ever have a little brother or sister, you two would have loved Paradise Estate in the ponies. Foreshadowing! Oh, news! 36 hours had passed since what popular media and almost everyone else now referred to today as the Broken Fang. Duke, Hawk, Flint, and Roadblock and T.I. Joe were at the Edwards Air Force Base, standing outside a hangar and observing a limousine and entourage following up to him. He slowed to a stop, and all four men stiffened to attention as the President of the United States stepped out of the limo.
Gentlemen, thank you so clearly for helping us erase this so quickly.
The white-haired older man said, with a soft Southern accent. He turned to his side.
Is everything all set now?
He spoke to a mic and clipped his lapel. After a second, he nodded.
Everyone else is inside, Mr. President. All preparations are ready.
As the President, surrounded by Secret Service, entered the hangar. The interior of the cavernous building was mostly empty, save the center. A large table and chairs were set up there, along with a few cameras, monitors, and pieces of computer equipment and a few other odds and ends. A few dozen people milled about, while another dozen sat at a table. Farther back were Optimus Prime, Prowl, Jazz, and the Autobots. All three were in vehicle mode. A red Freightliner FL-86 cab over a Henson triple-axle semi-trailer truck. A black and white Decepticon 2080 ZX sports car with police detailing. And a white Porsche 935 Turbo with racing details, respectively. Closer to the Joe members stood Careful Ivan Brikov, Lieutenant Dana, and Sergeant Stefan Harshelterkowski, members of the elite Russian anti-terrorist unit known as the October Guard. Brikov extended a closed hand to Hawk as he approached.
General, good to see you. Although I do wish some circumstances were different.
Hawk walked up to Brikov and accepted the offer hand, saying sternly,
Agree, Colonel. I'm sorry for the civilians wounded or killed in Samaria, as well as any caught in the attacks of Lithuania or the Ukraine.
Brikov's expression darkened.
And I extend my condolences for those lost in New York and Florida. But the stakes,
he turned and spat on the concrete floor.
May they an extended stay in hell.
Duke, leaning on a crane, tested his chest.
Not going to disagree with you, Colonel. My heart would bleed for them, if it was still flesh.
Dana eyed to him, leaning back slightly. After the incident with Cobra? I'm sorry. I did not know.
Duke nodded to her. It was all right. It was a joint operation by Doc and First Aid. A true melding of human and Autobot techniques and technology.
He held up his left hand and slowly squeezed it.
They could fix my heart. But the exotic cocktail toxins from the snake are another story. Barring some major advances, I'm off frontline duties for the rest of my life.
Harshield shook his head.
I could never imagine myself without the roar of cannons or the stomping of boots in my life,
he said in a thickly accented voice.
Roblox spoke up. Well, at least it's still alive.
He patted Duke on the shoulder, sending him stumbling slightly.
There's a lot more a man could do above ground than underground.
Duke grunted, regaining his balance.
Yeah. Thanks, Roblox.
He rotated his arm, wincing.
I think.
The group walked over, following the president. The heads of the state of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Russian Republic, and the UK were already seated to near, along with an eighth unknown person there. Though, he stirred vague memories in Hawk's mind. 3 chairs near the Autobots remained empty. 4 personal guards steered near each lair, sensors alert and weapons at the ready. Various technicians and aides busied themselves, finishing up last preparations and details. The president sat down, taking a deep breath.
Thank you for coming on such short notice, he said. The past few days have been some kind of turmoil. We can't even stand on ceremony at the moment.
He glanced over to the Autobots.
Also, I apologize for meeting in the hangar, but we felt it would be best for Optimus Prime and the other 2 Autobots.
The French president, a balding man and a veteran of World War II, spoke up.
This pleases me for asking, but it would seem that it'd be a bit awkward for them to transform and stand over us.
He held up a hand.
No offense, Monsieur Prime.
Prime's voice emanated from the cab portion of the tractor trailer, loud enough to carry over the entire hangar.
None taken, Mr. President. If you'll give us a moment, we shall be able to sit at the table with you.
The interiors of the vehicles brightened. A crude wireframe in the shape of a human appeared in the driver's seat. Sections of it filled in. Quickly, details emerged. Within seconds, a holographic avatar indistinguishable from a human being sat in their seats. Their doors opened, and they stepped out, walking over to the table. Optimus's avatar was a rugged-looking, with a cowboy hat perched on brown hair and a mustache. A plaid shirt and jeans finished the look. Prowse wore a police uniform straight out of the LAPD, with mirrored shades covering his eyes. And finally, Jazz was clad in a suit and tie, fitting his body like a glove. Aides moved to pull out their chairs, but Jazz waved them off, and, with a force, pulled out his own chair. "Thanks! Better got it!" he said as he spun around on a heel and landed perfectly in the chair. Holograms, you see. We use them to move about other organic species undetected. But on Earth, there was never much of a use for them. He flashing a brilliant smile that contrasted with his dark skin. I know of an EMH that would love to talk to you guys. The Minister of Italy eyed the three, furry graying eyebrows. Let's wonder if something like that could do for us. Optimus nodded to him.
That is one thing we wish to discuss with you, Prime Minister, but in due course.
The American president looked at Hawk. You all know of Cyril Hawk of the Counter Organized Grid Delta 6, more popularly known as G.I. Joe. He could bring us all up to speed as the Alliance. Hawk walked over to a flat screen projector next to the table. On it was a map of the Atlantic Ocean.
As far as the Second Fleet Royal Navy can determine, Cobra lost an attack on the Decepticon leaders' underwater headquarters.
It failed miserably. He looked at the Prime Minister.
But thank you for your country's assistance.
You're welcome, he said, adjusting his glasses. The Admiralty was happy to assist. Hawk looked to a computer technician sitting in front of a computer monitor keyboard.
Next, please.
He waited for the image to change to a political map of Earth before continuing.
They swarmed out from their headquarters, first bombing Cobra Island, then hitting high-priority targets in New York and the 4 Everglades. After that, they split up and hit more than 30 bases worldwide.
He pointed at red circles all over the map.
As far as we could tell, they hit almost every single Cobra installation on the planet. Their leadership's been wiped out, and, apart from stragglers here and there, Cobra is effectively finished.
He looked to a dark-skinned man in a lab coat, standing next to a map of the Gulf of Mexico and Caribbean.
This is Dr. Jeff Franklin for the National Seismic Institute here in Washington. He can fill you in a bit more clearly on the eruption's effects.
Jeff nodded to him before clearing his throat.
Thank you, General.
He nodded to the red dot on the map of Cuba, almost a straight line from Cancun to Miami.
To put it simply, as possible, we are looking at a Vesuvius right in the middle of the Gulf Coast, stretching out from beyond the Caribbean. Right now, there's an ash cloud hovering over the remains of the island. That's only the beginning. The eruptive column is going to collapse and scour the island clean of everything that might have been still alive. After that, the magma chamber collapses, and the island itself prepares to sink. Even being underwater won't stop it. He slits his hands over the states of the Gulf Coast, then to Cuba, then around Mexico. We're looking at tsunamis several dozen meters high that will cause massive devastation. The American president's face was dark. The governors of states as far as inland as Tennessee, Missouri, and my home state of Arkansas have declared states of emergency. But facing this, he sunk down, shaking his head. Optimus spoke up. I've already ordered every available Autobot there, Mr. President. Ironhide is leading a team there with a plan to drain away excess energy by using aeroton cubes. That should mitigate a lot of the effects. I also have teams deploying all along the Gulf Coast with force field protectors.
He paused a moment.
But I'm afraid we can't reverse all the effects, nor cover the entire coastline.
The American president nodded to him. Anything will help. The Russian president cleared his throat.
We will offer any available aid to you in the crisis, but my own nation was hit. The attack in Siberia did little damage beyond the Cobra facility destroyed. But the Ukraine has asked for assistance in dealing with the attack in Kiev. It is only second to Chernobyl as an ecological disaster!
His ruddy skin paled. His hand shook. Jeff spoke. Optimus, your mission to the volcano might be a bit difficult. The ash clouds are going to seriously hinder both air and sea travel. The farther north you go, the better it will be. But with an eruption like this, there will be pumice washing up along the African and European coastlines. Prowl spoke up. Ironhide's flying in Skyfire, who's ready for deep space missions. We also got some of the toughest Autobots going there, Jeff. It'll be difficult, but we'll be slagged before we stop.
Yeah!
The French president immediately slapped the table with the palm of his hand.
I will not stay for this! The Rats will not stay for this! For a decade, the Decepticons have raided and pillaged humanity with impunity, and we have been able to do little to stop him, if anything.
He looked around. I know the United States and Russia already fight them, but we must all join in fighting against those bastards! Who's with us? The Japanese minister let out a prime sigh. The problem with that is, as you said, two of the largest militaries on the planet have limited success against them. Their technology is on a whole different level from ours. I fear that until now, they've almost been playing with us. The final man at the table, silent until now, spoke up.
This illusion seems to be rather obvious, at least to me.
Hawk and Breathrock clapped onto him.
And that would be. And just who are you?
Hawk asked, placing his hands on his hips. He held up a hand.
I am not surprised you don't recognize me, General. Then again, I'm usually a bit more covered up.
He placed a hand on his chest.
James McCullen, the 24th. Destro, if you prefer.
Both Hawk and Breathrock stiffened, while Dana, Roadblock, Flint, and Hardshow readied their weapons. Destro's bodyguard stepped in front of him, hands on their holsters. The American president stopped to his feet. Wait, he shouted. Leo's a foul here.
Hawk's jaw dropped. He was?
Destro stood up.
I know we don't see eye to everything, General, but believe me, I hate the Decepticons. I have no desire for my family or associates to be either turned into slaves or killed by them. I pledge the full might of Mars Industries and the Iron Grenadiers in the fight against the Decepticons.
Duke's grip on his cane tightened.
In exchange for a full pardon for yourself and the Baroness, I assume?
Destro shrugged.
Well, we can't do our best to look behind bars, can we?
Duke shook his head.
Can't argue with you there. So, as you were saying, what's the situation?
The Iron Stealer sat back down.
The Autobots have the technology to combat the Decepticons, but they're not the full resources. Humanity has the resources, but not the technology. Trade seems to be in our best interest.
Jazz let out a small sigh.
Slack! Are you a sack of Destro?
The kind minister leaned forward.
What do you mean?
He said. The President of the United States spoke up.
Well, while Russell Counterpart and I were getting ready to make this public. But I'll say this now. G.I. Joe and the Atomic Guard are being disbanded, and, along with units from our regular armed forces, will be combined to one Autobot and one unit. With help from the Autobots, they'll form a new form known as Earth Defense Command. Its mission will be the protection of Earth and mankind. He paused. All mankind.
Silence descended in front of the table. The French president finally broke the silence. That is a big step, he said after a moment. The others began talking amongst themselves. The others in a cacophony. Hawk and Barkov glanced at each other.
Wait a moment!
He shouted. He waited for the din to die down before continuing.
I know how insane it sounds, but right now, it's the best option we got!
The French Prime Minister took his head.
Might be, but it's still pretty common saying. A prominent multinational armed force?
The Italian Prime Minister raised his hand.
Yes, the United States ultimately in charge of this. What are your large sources?
What? Have you worked out your Reichstag?
What's this Starfleet from Star Trek?
Heck yeah! Optimus stood up and held his hands out.
The United States is not in overall charge, nor is Russia. The Earth Defense Command will be a multinational unit dedicated to the protection of all Earth, not just any one nation or group of nations. It'll be difficult, but I believe this is the only way to bring the fight to the Decepticons and any other ill-starred threat out there.
The Canadian Prime Minister paled.
You mean there are others out there?
Prowl looked at her. Oh, it was a girl.
Sorry.
Prowl looked at her. Space is a big place, sir. There are species out there that are almost on par with Cybertron, technologically speaking.
The French president leaned back and massaged his forehead. I do not know how Parliament will respond to this. It will be the hottest hour in my life, and I helped push through the European Union.
The American president leaned forward.
Will you try?
There was a pause before he nodded.
I will use my best, but I cannot guarantee anything. But if I must get up my own uniform and lead the charge myself, I will.
Russell president clapped his hands together.
Wicked the bullets of the East.
The American president motioned for an aide to step forward with a cart.
We've made up documents for what we hope to accomplish with this venture,
he said as his aide walked around, placing the thick folders in front of everyone at the table. I know this is the big step, but every journey begins with this one. The British Prime Minister shook his head. Save the solemn blights for our fellow politicians. That's where you're going to need them the most. He stopped as he opened the folder and began reading the first page. That is where we all need them the most. Chapter 5. It had been nearly a week for Cobra Commander and his little band of escapees. A week since he fled Cobra Island for their lives. They had managed to settle into a new life in his rather large 50-room mansion in upstate New York, going through, cleaning it up, and settling into their new lives. He sat at a desk in one of the mansion's 5 studies, pen in hand and a piece of paper in front of him. He began writing,
Dear Destro and Baroness.
He suddenly grabbed the paper, crumpled it up, and tossed it into a waste paper basket.
No, they don't go by that anymore.
Cobra Commander mused. He grabbed another piece of paper. Cracked his knuckles before starting once more.
Dear James and Anastasia, as you've probably figured out by now, yes, I did survive the almost complete annihilation of Cobra. My location for now, some remain a mystery. To prevent any chance of the Decepticons tracking us down and finishing the job, I shall not tempt the good fortune I've received. Let me assure you, I have no intentions of restarting Cobra, or even attempting any more international terrorism. The time for that is over. Plus, I do not relish being vaporized. Now, for the purpose of this letter, I have the favor to ask you. Now I know what you're thinking. After all the times you've tried to kill us, I should remind you of the numerous times you've tried to kill me. By this point in time, it's all under water under the bridge, wouldn't you say? Besides, I did warn you of Serpentor's rather boneheaded strike, thus possibly saving your lives. Besides, this favor will work out for the best. There are about 200 deep-cover Crimson Guardsmen scattered throughout the United States. Tomorrow, I shall be sending them telegrams informing them that Cobra is finished, and they should abandon any hopes of me restructuring the RS organization. They shall need jobs. Jobs I hope Mars will be able to provide for them. Now, I can already sense your wariness concerning this request. Let me assure you, this isn't some plot to infiltrate Mars, nor is it some attempt to sabotage the war effort against the Decepticons. 200 guardsmen are a formidable force, but woefully outnumbered by your own well-trained troops. I also do not wish to see the Decepticons win this fight. I also have somewhat a more personal stake in this battle than before. So, even though I know you won't believe me, I do wish you good luck. Joe Broca.
Cobra Commander folded the letter up and slid it into the envelope. He picked the headset off the telephone and off the desk and pressed the line button on it. He waited for a moment before speaking.
Mindy, Antonio, Bobby, please report to the main study. Yes, thank you.
He picked up a folder and leafed through it before leaning back in his chair. A few minutes passed, and there was a gentle knock at the door.
Come in!
The door opened, and Antonio, Mindy, and Bobby stood there. Bobby and Antonio wore a finely pressed black suits, while Mindy wore a pair of green overalls smudged with dirt and the occasional leaf and twig. She held a pair of pruning shears in one hand and trowel in the other. Antonio had a video camera and tripod, while Bobby held a phone book. Cobra Commander motioned for them to come closer.
I have a job for each of you.
He pulled open a drawer and pulled out a set of keys and tossed them to Mindy, who caught it with her trowel hand.
Mindy, I have here a list of addresses of every Crimson Guardsman in the country. Drive down to the Western Union office in town and send them the message on the top piece of the paper in the folder.
He stood up and waited for her to slide the shears into a holster onto her tool belt before giving her the folder.
And yes, you may take the Mercedes. Just no parking tickets!
Mindy pumped her fist in the air.
Yes!
She said, grinning. She bowed to Commander and said, I'll be back this evening, before turning around and leaving the room.
Change out of your work clothes!
Cobra Commander shouted after her. He rolled his eyes before continuing.
Bobby, good. You have the phone book. Call the carrier service and arrange their ride to have 3 of their best here by 6 a.m. tomorrow. Money is not an object.
Bobby tossed him an informal salute.
I'll call him right up right now.
And with that, he was gone. Antonio walked inside, visiting slightly with the camera and tripod. He set the tripod on the carpeted floor, fumbling a bit. He paused before attaching the camera to the mounting head. Are you sure about this? Mr. Broca. Cobra Commander stared off to the side of the picture, his ex-wife and son on the wall.
He deserves this from me,
he finally said. He motioned to Antonio.
Let's just get this over with, Antonio, before I change my mind at least.
Near the outskirts of the city was an almost innocuous-looking temple, not standing out from any other. Inside, however, the Arasakaki clan worked, trained, and rebuilt itself, stronger than before. One such member of the clan, Billy Kessler, Astern of his good eye, a dozen of the students out in the main training field, as they practiced under the tutelage of Kim, Jinx, Arashikage. He leaned in on his artificial right leg and crossed his arms, nodding. One of the temple's attendants walked up to him and bowed. Pardon me, Mr. Kessler, but Mr. Zohara requests your presence in the main entrance. There's a courier from the United States with a package for you. Billy turned to him and returned a bow. I assume she senses no real danger from him. The attendant nodded. He has a firearm on him, but it's holstered, is safely engaged. The suitcase he carries has no explosive or poisons, nor does he have any on him. Billy's spine tingled, but he followed the attendant to the temple entrance. There stood Shauna Scarlett O'Hara, leaning up against the mouth of the wall, with one hand resting against protectively on her swollen belly. An older man in a gray suit walked in front of him, in front of the double doors, a pair of ninja flanking him. He wore a pair of sunglasses and a suitcase stuck to his left wrist. He adjusted his face as Billy walked to him. William Kressler? Billy glanced at Scarlett, who tilted her head down slightly. He looked at the man and grunted, Yeah, and you are? The man smirked. Name's not important. I come from a courier service and have a package for William Kressler that I must hand deliver him. May I see some ID, please? Billy rolled his eye into the sky, pulled out an ID card and handed it over. The courier looked it over before nodding and handing it back. He knelt down and unlocked the suitcase and pulled up a clipboard, a small package wrapped in a brown plain paper. Sign here, please. Billy signed it and took the package. The courier slid the cardboard back into the suitcase, tipped an imaginary hat to everyone, and walked out. The two ninjas billed to Billy and Scarlett before walking off, leaving the two alone. Scarlett straightened up a bit, laying on a grump and massaging the small of her back. Any idea who it's from? Or who it actually is? Billy hefted the package and shook his head. Not physically dangerous, I know that. He looked at her. May I have some privacy with this, please? Scarlett nodded and began walking off. She passed by him and patted him on the shoulder. I gotta call up the States anyway and have a really nice chat with my darling husband and that sword brother-in-law of mine anyway. She stopped and looked him in the eyes. If you need me, get me. We're family after all. Billy smiled and patted Scarlett's hand. Thanks. He watched as she walked off, but suddenly called out, Hey, wait a minute. Isn't it 1 a.m. where Snake Eyes is? Scarlett turned around and pointed at her belly. If Junior here is going to keep me awake through the night, then it's only fair that Snake Eyes share my bliss. With that, she turned back and walked off, leaving Billy alone. See, Snake Eyes? All your ninja training will not save you from a pregnant woman. Billy slowly walked across the courtyard, opening the package. He gasped when he found 3 envelopes bristling with $100 bills and a VHS tape. He held the tape up and saw, to Billy, from Dad. The young man broke into a dead run, clutching the package and its contents for dear life. He slammed open a side door and ran down a corridor, quickly reaching his personal quarters. His breath was coming in hitches as he reached his brand new television with built-in VCR. His fingers shook as he pushed the tape in. Billy stepped back, counted to 10 in English and Japanese, and stared at himself before kneeling down, turning the television to channel 3 and pressing a play button. The image changed from a local news broadcast to a man just past middle age sitting at a desk. Billy plopped down a chair, mouth agape, as he beheld his father for the first time in almost 7 years.
Hello, son,
Cobra Commander said. He was leaning forward, arms resting on his sides and hands clasped together. He looked at the camera with slightly clouded eyes, coughed a bit and continued.
If you're seeing this, then that means Cobra has been destroyed, and Cobra Commander does not exist anymore. Part of me wishes I could tell you this in person, but I know that's impossible. He'd be likely to kill me, and I wouldn't blame you. There's $100,000 in unmarked bills there. None of that earned through illegal means. Your mother will be receiving an identical amount in a few days, but no videotape.
He held his right hand up,
Please don't throw it away. Give it to charity. Drop it off at a homeless shelter. Give a waitress the tip of a lifetime. Just don't toss it into a trash can and light it on fire.
Billy held up one of the envelopes and looked it over, eyes taking in every one of the bills. Damn, he whispered. Cobra Commander paused for a moment and looked away before slowly raising his head and looking right at the camera.
There are many things I've done in life with almost no regrets. But for you and your mother, I regret what happened to you. I'm sorry, Billy. What happened to you is one thing I would take back, without hesitation or second thoughts. If you believe nothing else I say, please believe that. And I love you.
With those final words, the picture changed to electronic static. Billy leaned forward, eyes on the floor. Part of him wanted to trash the room. Part of him wanted to sit there for the rest of his life. He slid off the chair and onto the floor, tears flowing freely. His entire body shook as he broke down, memories tearing down his mental divisions and laying everything bare. Scarlet walked into the room and sat down next to him as well as he could, saying nothing as he continued. After some time, he finally spoke.
Is there anything I can do?
Billy wiped his cheeks and eye, swallowed, leaned back, and looked up to the ceiling. He sucked in a breath and held it in and slowly exhaled. Billy repeated the breathing for a few moments, centering himself once more. Sorry. Scarlet shifted her position to reach over and grab his forearm, squeezing it.
No need, Billy. But thank you.
She looked at the television.
It was him?
Billy nodded and waved a hand. Yeah. He looked at her. He's dead. I could feel it. I don't know whether to party for a month or break down and cry for a month. Scarlet bit her lip. Billy half smiled. Yeah, I know which one you do. Not that I could blame you. It's just... I know the horrors he's committed, and a large part of me really is glad he's dead, but at the same time, he's my father. In the beginning, before my uncle's death, he was a good man. I remember that. But after Vietnam and the business falling, he just slipped down and down until... He tossed his hands in the air. Scarlet nodded.
Family does that to you. What's that old saying? Blood is thicker than water?
He looked at her. Yeah, that's true with Mom and with you. Everyone else here. He leaned forward. You're all my family. Tommy, Snake, Kim, but Dad? He shook his head. I don't know, Shauna. I just don't know with him. Scarlet nodded. She waited a bit before finally speaking.
Well, all right, Billy. I know this might not be the best question, but are you all right?
A smile slowly formed on the younger man's face. Thanks, Shauna. I'm fine now. He reached over and picked up one of the envelopes of money. So, what about this? Scarlet rubbed her chin.
Well, what do you think? It's your money, after all.
Billy looked the envelope over. It would be a waste to throw it all out. His gaze drifted to Scarlet's belly. College fun for the little guy or girl? Scarlet smiled down.
Thank you.
She looked over the television once more. We better contact jail headquarters about this tape. They'll want to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. Billy stood up and assisted Scarlet in regaining her vertical base before standing. So, you'll really call Snake Eyes up this time instead of lying to give me some space? He said, winking. Scarlet's expression darkened.
Damn it! I thought I had my breathing under control for that.
Billy shrugged. Well, it just wasn't that. Harry, confused look, he continued. Let's be honest. Your calls to the States usually last a lot longer than this. He knelt down and ejected the tape from the VCR part of the television. Let's get this to someone who can make some heads or tails of it. The main foyer of Mars factory in Chicago was a high of activity. Orders for increased production were pouring in from the Home Office. Lines of applicants stretched out the door. One of the receptionists managed the applicants looked up as a man approaching middle age approached him. Manila phone in her hand.
Hello. You're here about the job offers. Please make sure you have full ID and resume ready,
he said, barely glancing up from his word processor. The man, one Wade Collins, placed the folder on the desk and slid it over.
I'm sure you'll find all the pieces in place,
he said, smiling lightly. The receptionist was paused in his typing and looked up at Wade. He grabbed the folder and opened it. Inside was 2 pieces of paper and a medallion symbol of the Crimson Guardsman. The receptionist slowly picked up his phone and pressed a button on the keypad. Please inform my assistant that we have a rest interview. Yes, thank you. He pushed the receiver back down and onto the cradle and looked up at Wade. Please have a seat, Mr. Collins. We'll be ready for you in a few minutes. 1 week later. Mainframe looked himself over in his bedroom mirror, making sure his uniform was on right. He walked into the living room of his apartment and grabbed a duffel bag and various other pieces of equipment, pausing to look at boxes filled with items and furniture all covered with tarps. I'm gonna lace this place, he said before going to the door and opening it. He stopped dead in his tracks as Zarna and Zaina emerged from the apartment across the hall. Both ladies looked almost bizarre in their normalcy. Zara's hair had almost lost all its dye and now was a soft brown. She wore a little makeup with some light eyeshadow and lipstick. A plain t-shirt, jeans, and high-top sneakers completed the look. Zaina wore almost identical clothes, and her hair, once lime green, was now a natural black. Zarna smiled at him and waved. Hey, neighbor, she said with a genuine warmth in his face. Mainframe's mouth opened wide. He shifted his gaze from one to another and back before stopping back inside and closing the door. He counted to 10 before opening it and stepping out again, finding a much crosser-looking Zarna and saying there, hi, he said, waving weakly at him. Zarna stepped up to him and jabbed a finger to his chest. Mind explaining what the bloomin' hell that was all about? Mainframe scratched the back of his head, jostling something about, sorry, I just wasn't sure if I was listening or not. Their expression he shrugged. I thought you'd be at Luke for a lot longer. I'd be somewhere else afterwards. Zarna shrugged. They grilled us for 3 days. I think they gave up about the time I started describing road pigs' eating habits. But I did give them a few locations that the Decepticons didn't hit. Mainframe's frown burrowed. Weapons? Depots? Doomsday devices? Zarna shrugged. Not a clue. All I did was deliver stuff to the people already there. But what I gave them are Zoni, and I a full part in a new identity. She held her hand. Good to see you again, Mainframe. It's your old friend Carol. Mainframe let out a breath and shook Zara's hand. Good to see you, Carol. And damn, that's going to be hard to remember. See his story. It's hard enough for me to remember my name's Zoe now. Zara looked Mainframe over, noticing the duffel bag. She leaned into her right and looked at the apartment. Hey, what's with all the boxes? And everything's covered up. She straightened up and her expression became cloudy. What's going on? Mainframe felt a sudden outbreak of sweat on his brow that had little to do with his helmet. He reached up and adjusted and wiped his forehead. Well, in about a week or so, I'm moving to Silicon Valley, California. I'll be helping with reverse engineering and biotechnology for the new Earth Defense Command. Zara and Xena stared at him for a moment. Oh, Zara finally said. Mainframe's eyes started around, looking at everything but the two ladies standing before him. Is there a problem? He finally ventured. Zara let out a small growl. Oh, problem? No problem at all! She paced around the circle. Zoe and I don't have anyone else, so we come here and you're leaving! She rubbed her forehead. God damn it, that sounded so much better in my head! Xena spoke up. Sorry about that, Mainframe. It's just that, well, after everything, this seems like the best place to come. I hate to sound maudlin, but right now, you're the closest thing we've got to a family. Mainframe glanced at Sarna, who was doing her best to avoid eye contact. He understood and thought, the terms of your parole and records are right clean. What are they? Are you living in Movement? Xena's eyes brightened. No, we're not, as far as we know. Mainframe held out his arms to the two. Come with me. Zara's eyes shot up. What? Xena grinned. I'm in! Thanks, Uncle Mainframe! Both adults looked at the young teen. Go! Xena shrugged a step back, holding up her hands. Just saying! Mainframe continued. I'll be moving into an apartment there. It'll be a little cramped, but pretty nice. Zara rolled her eyes before looking to Mainframe. Come with you. Just like that. I mean, it's tempting, but it's also pretty damn sudden. She paused and barked a laugh. Okay, this has all been pretty sudden, but, I mean, do you know me? Do I know you? Mainframe shrugged. I know you've had a lot of opportunities to kill me, but never followed through. In your own way, you even saved my life. I know family's important to you, and you've got one hell of an edge. And I know that I love you. Xena punted her fist in the air. Yes! Sarah stepped up onto him. Do you have any real idea what you'd be getting into with me? With us? She pointed to Xena. I'm not exactly Jim Cleaver, you know. No white picket fences with me, mate. Mainframe nodded. I want to ask them with you. I want you. The two drifted closer, their lips finally meeting. The kiss was brief, lasting only a few seconds. Sarna broke it, reached up and messed with Mainframe's helmet. I think I love you too. I'll go with you. Mainframe grinned. He leaned forward to kiss her again, only to be interrupted by a gruff from Xena. The two stepped away from each other, blushing slightly. Mainframe waved at his double bang. I don't have to. Sarah waved to her hand. No, of course. We'll be here across the hall when you get back. She looked at Sana. Don't start, she said as he walked back inside her apartment. Sana shook her head.
Was it going to?
She followed Zara inside.
So, what's the wedding, casual or formal?
A throw knife embedding the door was the only response. Year 1999. Final chapter. Epilogue. It was a small warehouse on the outskirts of the Highlands, New York. The sun set as people began trickling toward it, singly or in small groups no larger than 3. They all received the same message, using codes they all recognized. They walked through the unlocked gate, gathering in front of the warehouse. A few dozen stood around, so no one was entirely what to say. Finally, one spoke up. Hey! Weren't you a televiper back at the Lithuanian depot? Yeah, I was out shopping when the Decepticons leveled the place. I was the only one not turned into the greasy smell. You were a viper there for a month, right? Yeah. He looked around 50 or so gathered there. Would it be too much to assume that everyone else here was a member of a certain state-themed organization until about 5 years ago? Their nods to the vipers turned his spine to ice. I spell a setup. He turned to leave, but the gate suddenly slammed up. Oh, shit! Floodlight slowly switched on, bathing the area in light. Almost everyone there pulled out sidearms, a few of them high-powered and highly illegal ART weapons. A bay door warehouse closed, catching everyone's attention. A lone figure stood there, his hand clasped behind her back. Faint details such as a mask and bits of his armor could be made out, but the majority was hidden in shadow. Good, you're here. His voice amplified and scratchy. 50 weapons turned to the figure, as 50 clicks of safety being disengaged and a line of power sources humming to life. Who the hell are you? My name is Robert Skeleton. It was that. Floodlights dim, revealing a large man with blue armor, blue helmet, and black harness and boots. The lower half of his face was covered by a small mask, leaving only glowing red eyes and a bit of skin visible. He held out his hand, tiny worry accompanying every movement. After I volunteered for an experiment, I was refilled into the Bat Commander, but Cobra was annihilated before I was fully activated. Now, I am simply known as Overkill. It has taken me quite some time to track you all down, but now that you're here, we may begin once more. Murmurs swept the crowd. Begin what? Overkill hopped off the lift of the bay and landed on the concrete with a teeth rattling thud. I was programmed and rebuilt into the ultimate soldier. You and I are all that remains of Cobra. Well, that, and the contents of this warehouse. He motioned to the warehouse, and 2 large garage doors opened. Yeah, might you not being so cryptic and tell us why you sent these messages? What is this, Cobra 2.0? Someone else shouted, gathering murmurs of approval. Overkill shook his head. No. Cobra died with Cobra Commander and all the rest back in 1994. This is something new, something better. It's sleeker, smaller, and more mobile. We won't be tied down to some small island or other bases. We won't seek legitimacy, but instead we'll seize it. We shall make the United States and all the world bow to our will. Our Barker laughed out. Ha! And about 30 seconds later, our tiny little group gets stopped flat by the U.S. military. Or, if they're feeling nasty, the Air Defense Command comes out to play. If they can catch us, Overkill retorted. As I said, it'll be much smaller, harder to find, and vastly tougher. We are the survivors. We are the ones who lived while others died. And here we are now. You cannot tell me there is no part of you that wishes for some battle once more, to assert your dominance over those who have wronged you. He paused, his whispering agreement swept over the others. Together, we can make it right our situation, and show our world power. All look great and nice, someone said, but with what? Most of us have weapons, but it's not going to be enough. One of the garage doors opened, and 200 bats marched out, each one with armor plating covering their bodies and holding glittering rifles. 6 Hiss Mark II tanks rolled out the door. I think these shall suffice for our first strike. Overkill is concerned. Barks of laughter echoed throughout the field. So, where do we head first? Overkill's right eyes brightened, and an overhead shot of a large field, a series of boulders before him.
West Point's graduation ceremony is tomorrow. I would say wiping out an entire class would be a good start. Wouldn't you think?
It was a fine day at the West Point Military Academy. The sun was shining, and there was just enough clouds in the air for some shade. The breeze was just right. Cadets marched in perfect formation over the plain, while their families and top military observers watched them. Off to the side of one of the bleachers stood Duke, cane in one hand, cell phone in the other, and held to his head.
Listen, we've got the cons on the run. They're almost completely balled up in their underwater base, and their energy raids are being stopped as almost as they're started. If we can keep the prisoner, we can... A large boom cut him off.
He looked to see something from the past. A column of bats marching across the plain.
Laser rifles splitting off into crimson death. Half-dozen Hiss tanks rolled behind them. And even further back were about 4 dozen people in cobbled together Cobra uniforms and armor. Duke held his phone up. I'll call you back.
He hung up a dial number.
This is Cartwright Hauser, requiring immediate ADC air action at West Point Military Academy.
He stepped out away from the bleachers and craned his neck.
I count approximately over 150 battle android troopers, 6 Hiss tanks at the Star Mark II model, and a few dozen Cobra rejects, possibly survivors of the broken fang.
He let out a hiss between his teeth.
10 minutes? All right. Over and out.
He slid the phone and get into his jacket pocket and uncooked a laser pistol from his Manehatten mount on his belt. He gripped his cane with his other hand and ran into the fields in front of the blazers.
Get these civilians and officers out of here!
He shouted, waving over the male cadets.
The cadets waved over. Yes, sir!
Duke paused and placed a hand on his shoulder.
All right, son. Deep breaths.
He pointed to the people in the blazers, which began to devolve into a teeming mass.
I need you to keep the crowd calm and get them out of here as quickly and safely as possible. I need you to do it now. Understood, cadets?
The cadets straightened up and saluted before running off into the bleachers, quickly directing the people their way. Duke smiled before turning to the enemy. He raised his laser pistol and fired, hitting 2 bats in their midsection. The artillery munitions detonated, taking out another dozen of the black-armored war machines apiece. He continued moving, grunting, hobbling slightly on his cane.
Come on, you bastards!
He shouted, firing all the while out.
Yo, Joe!
And if you are playing the G.I. Joe theme in your head at this very moment, you're welcome. I also have a list of various other rock songs you guys could be playing at this very moment.
Please do so!
Most probably anything by Stan Bush. The last movement caught his eye. He turned to his right as Overkill lowered over to him. Fists clenched.
Conrad Hauser,
he said, punching Duke to the stomach. Duke went down on one knee, face white. He clenched his midsection with one hand, raised cane with the other. He jabbed it at Overkill and flipped the switch on it, sending a shock into the cyborg. The Overkill let out a high-pitched squeal and spasm, but batted to kill away.
Futile! Iron, hopeless for you! I know all the damage Cobra lost toxins did to your organs. I believe I have already done serious damage.
He stepped over, grabbing Duke by the collar and hauling him up with one hand. A panel on his right arm slid open, and a laser cannon slid out of it.
With your death, a new order arises.
Duke gritted his teeth.
Get some new lines!
He shoved the palm of one hand into Overkill's face, batting the other with his chest, while stabbing both feet into his midsection, forcing Overkill to lose his grip and let go. He dropped to one knee and shook his hand, hissing in pain.
Damn!
He stood up, only for Overkill to backhand him and send him spinning around. Duke once more slid on the grass, eyes glazing over. He slowly rose to his chest and knees, only for Overkill to kick him in the ribs. Blech! Blood spurted from his mouth, and he dropped once more. The cyborg loomed over at Duke.
So pathetic. You think you were the one to punch Cobra Commander off the top of the Statue of Liberty? My soldiers shall roll over this country.
Duke smiled through the pain racking his body.
I doubt it.
He hiked out. He raised a trembling hand and pointed to Overkill's midsection.
ETC forces are about 2 minutes away to stop them, but you'll be stopped in about 10 seconds. Overkill glanced down at his big section as a high-pitched whine filled the air. He spotted Duke's laser pistol magnetically clamped to his armor, the energy seal belting up to an overload. He reached to it, but it detonated, reducing Overkill's entire upper body to shrapnel, and the debris rained out. His waist and legs tried for a bit before toppling back onto the grass. Looks like Overkill's been overdone. Yeah! Duke wheezed out and spat out some more blood. Looked over at his shoulders and the gray-hued power armor dropped out of the sky, blowing apart the BATs and surrounding the HISS tanks at Cobra's shoulders. The soldiers put up sporadic resistance before the vast majority dropped their weapons and either surrendered or tried running. He forced a weak smile as his vision grew hazy. Mission complete, he said before dropping to the grass. Several cadets ran over to Duke and dropped to their knees. Sir? Sir! He gently turned him over and ripped his shirt open, exposing his chest and the scar over his heart. One of them leaned over, placing his hand to his chest. Oh, damn it. Damn it. He saw his head up. Get a doctor here! Now! Duke stared into eternity, a smile frozen on his face. Former members of G.I. Joe, the October Guard, member of the Earth's Defense Command, family, politicians, and other acquaintances gathered at Arlington's National Cemetery, their mood somber and subdued. Vincent Falcon Falcone, Duke's half-brother, stood at the lecture. Duke, Conrad, was someone I looked up to, and an obstacle on occasion. Yes, there were times I resented how great he was, but I never hated him. I looked out to all of you, then I look at my brother. His voice trailed off, fight down his eyes, still cracking. Damn it. I just want him back. He leaned on the lecture, openly sobbing. Hawk walked over and guided gently Falcon back to his seat. Then walked back to the lectern. Like Falcon, I wish my old friend was back. We fought through thick and thin, and when Duke was on the field, he had everyone's back. He led the front, took no grief, and gave it his all. He was my friend, and I miss him, he said, looking down as the tears fell from his eyes. One man sat in the back, cleansed in a trench coat, hat, and sunglasses. He was hunched down in his chair, eyes shifting between his shades, as he sat up as two people sat to either side of him.
Well, some of the gang's all here,
Cobra Commander said to the Baroness and Destro. Destro, wearing a suit and tie, no mask, slid his left arm over his lap and pointed at Cobra Commander. If you all attempt to disturb the proceedings, I will kill you, he stated, face almost as expressionless as his mask. Cobra Commander held up gloved hands and let the sleeves of his coat slide down.
Nothing up my sleeves, nor any intention to draw attention to myself. I am simply here to pay respect to a worthy adversary, and to close this chapter of my life.
He leaned forward and squinted.
Is that Sarna? I thought she was killed.
Baroness snored. A worthy adversary. Please, my dear Commander, I recall ranting for days after he punched you off the Statue of Liberty and blew up our air fortress with the bomb you planted. He leaned in close to his head, and as my dear saying, sir, try anything and you would die. She glanced at the seats and the woman in question, and her name is Keller. Carol Reeder, I assure you. A chuckle escaped Cobra Commander.
Of course, right. Just a coincidence. And for the record, I'm a new man, Anastasia, and we're dropping our code names. I mean that literally, too. With all the surgery I've had to restore my humanity. As for Duke's actions that day, I'm letting bygones be bygones. Thanks to him and the Earth Defense Command, the Decepticons have nearly been driven off Earth, and those insane and humanoids aren't as dangerous as they once were. Even took care of that overkill thing.
He rolled his eyes.
I mean, seriously, 50 people, some tanks, and bats. Did his hard drive crash or something?
Destro leaned back, keeping his arm aimed to the commander. Very well. But we shall be watching you. Over the past 5 years, I grew to respect that man, and I will not have his funeral disrupted. He stood up and turned. Both paused and looked over his shoulder. The Crimson Guards are very efficient workers. Thank you for recommending it to me. And with that, he and the Bears walked off. Cobra Commander sat there for another half hour before finally getting up. He doffed his hat to Duke's coffin before walking away, keeping his head down. He approached the limo's driver. Good service, Mr. Brooker, he asked, opening the door. Cobra Commander nodded as he sat down.
Very good.
He sat down to sit in the driver's seat.
Take us to the airport, Antonio. We've got a lot of work waiting for us back home.
He settled back in the seat and looked up at the roof.
So, this is what security feels like. Rather nice.
Antonio looked back. Sir? Cobra Commander waved him off.
Never mind, Antonio. Just the ramblings of someone feeling safe for the first time.
He reached across the interior and plucked a bottle of wine from a built-in ice packet.
To surviving, Antonio, and living in the end.
He looked down at the floor and wiggled the bottle.
Ta-ta for now, losers!
Pedestrians looked up as the model of the limo shot down the street. Muffled laughter coming from all the way from the airport.
Cobra!
The end. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Because you want to know something? I was going to stop at the 1:14 mark, the 1 hour 14 mark, but I was far too enjoying this to stop. Good golly. Okay. How am I going to start this review? I guess I should start with a little bit of history and maybe explain why I enjoyed this so much. I was born in 1986, and one of my first movie watching memories have been, well, Superman saving Lois by turning back time, the TMNT being awesome, but also of a lone spaceship with a bunch of robots flying in, and an evil robot breaking through and killing the Autobots. Yep, my first introduction to the Transformers was the Transformers movie. So, yeah, I'm one of those few who never actually, I'm one of those people who didn't cry at Optimus's death. No, when I saw Optimus's death, I saw a great hero giving his all and saving the people he cared about. I think even at a young age I understood just how big and powerful this sacrifice was, and how much he meant to the entire these people, and what it meant to be a hero, to standing against all odds, against something so fierce and deadly like Megatron. And I guess also coming from Megatron's how I also fell in love with a really good villain, watching this ruthless creature taking him down. And thus began my love of Transformers. And since then, I may have gone away and left this side of things for a while, just let my love dwindle back, but every few years, I come back. I have watched the first episode of a lot of the Transformers series. Yes, even the Robots to the Skies anime which has Optimus and Ultra Magnus as brothers. I own all 4 movies, and I'm still a huge fan to this day. So yeah, I leave, come back. Joe's is a different story. Well, my first memory of seeing these guys was just joking about them, or every day after Voltron, turning it off, but not before watching Sergeant Slaughter step onto the screen. Which, I really wish he appeared in this story.
You called for me, little pansy?
Yes, Sergeant Slaughter, I just wanted to say I wish you popped up in this fic.
Well, you penciled that cake. I hope you got your wish.
Thank you, Mr. Slaughter. But over time, I began to fall in love with one certain sect. Cobra. Namely, him. Cobra Commander. Because I started to love this goofball. This guy who just seemed to fail and had this one catchphrase of saying, Cobra, retreat. It just seemed to be this huge, colossal failure that everybody seemed to hate. But as I grew to the TI show side of things, I started to fall in love with the villains. Destro, Baroness, all of Cobra.
Why? Because I do love a good, well-developed villains with some really nice backstory. Even one like Cobra Commander, where I've got a pick and choose category with that. But I fall in love with it. So, seeing this combination is really, really nice. But I think it also has a lot to do with, this is what we come to fanfics for. This is why I love fanfiction. This is what a really good fanfic can be. Because, let's face it, there is no way that this will ever happen in real life. You're never going to, unless Paramount and unless you can actually get to Hasbro Studios and Paramount and convince them that this would make back all the money that they expended, have over close to $100 million in budget, because you're going to need that for the computer designs on Altus Autobots and Decepticons. Plus, you got to remember, you got to pay certain actors legal fees, especially if you want to get some big names, like, say, you want to get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to star in it. You're going to need that. So unless you can convince Hasbro and Paramount that it's a worthwhile adventure, this is never going to happen in real life. But in fanfics, with a good story and a good, well-rounded person, this type of stuff can happen. You just need to know how to work it. I mean, I know for the past 6 months, I've highlighted a guy who tried. But here's the difference between Von Doom and Arcade Striker. I think you look at this and you see that Arcade Striker really has a deep love of the material. Von Doom, I'm not completely sure, but Arcade Striker has really good love for the material and wants to tell a really good story. And holy Nelly, did we get one! You know, if all Transformers fics are like this, or G.I. Joe fics are like this, I think I could be an enjoyable writer. I think I might be able to do a few more. I love Cobra Commander in this. I love the fact that while we saw that he was bumbling and being an idiot, one is always number is his favorite 70s song, we also see his smart side and that, yeah, he also knows about his men and realizes, look, I may be dead, but unless I do something smart, I'm not coming out of this alive. Also, we see that Cobra Commander may be dumb, but he's not completely stupid. And from what I've seen in the show, yeah, that is true. We also see that Destro's not a complete idiot. We see how he grows. Because, you know, I do love a good story that shows the future of our heroes, or even villains in this case. And let's face it, this is what Cobra Command was. This was all about Cobra. We see how Destro has grown. He's decided to move on with his life and put forward his munitions to a good use. The same could be said of Baroness, who's watching over their little son. I also love seeing the future of our Joes. Well, okay, 2 of them. Scarlet and Snake Eyes. I am a shipper, and I want to say thank you, RK, for making sure they get together in the end. Although I feel bad for Snake Eyes. And I also love seeing how badass the freaking Decepticons can be when you let them go. This is what should also happen more often in the movies. I mean, we always see in the live-action movies the military somehow being able to be all this, when we see what happens when you let the Decepticons out. There are no survivors, and it's not pleasant. Also, I have to admit, I loved watching how he handled the governments. And some other fics or some other stories, namely certain films, major extinction, the government would be stupid at this point.
They would either be blaming the Autobots, or thinking they can handle it on their own, or there'd be a lot of arguing. No! There's actually some intelligence here. They realize, look, against the Decepticons, we're dead. We need to band together. We need to work together with these guys led by a Peterbilt truck. We need to stand as one. Otherwise, we are going to fall. I love how they work together, how they talk to one another. And to tell you the truth, I see this happening more than I do anything in Michael Bay. I'm sorry, I just do. I see more intelligence actually winning out, realizing, look, we've got a lot of things to do. Also, I like that they knew how well to work together, and also did some enemies. I also kind of started to like Mainframe and Carol's relationship. I even started falling for it, and I was hoping they would get together in the end. And the Decepticons? Oh, good golly, that was awesome. I mean, they are at their fiercest I've ever seen them in. I mean, the movies just have them basically go, yeah, we took over. Woo. And maybe do some executions. Here, it's complete annihilation. We see that nothing stops them. Nothing works. They are scary. The Decepticons are frightening. And I had a smile on my face. Oh, no. I wasn't enjoying the deaths of the Cobra. I just really love a good villain. And I love it when we see just how bad a villain can be if you don't stop him. Sometimes it's good to be bad. Makes it all the better for a hero to stop him. And that's another point I want to touch on. Duke. As you all know, due to the death of Optimus Prime, Duke's death in G.I. Joe the movie was turned to him being in a coma and him waking up. And I've seen the scene in question, and it's so obviously dubbed, it ain't even funny. But the idea that he has a robotic heart actually really works to explain how he could look like he was in a coma, but came back. But I personally feel the G.I. Joe movie, in comparison to the Transformers movie, was kind of a bit of a disappointment. And one of the big things was the fight between Joe and Serpentor. I mean, in the Transformers movie, we got the final battle between Optimus and Megatron. Two long-standing foes duking it out and letting loose all they had and ultimately finishing each other off. Duke never got that chance. He just fought the loser, Serpentor. Here, and if he died there, that would have been a horrible send-off. But here, he went out like a hero. Saving his country, saving the world. Protecting the innocent. That is the way a hero goes. That is the way you write the death of a hero. That is how you construct it. I also liked how this fic was written in that it did something for me that I rarely see in a good fanfic. But, you see, I don't know much about G.I. Joe lore. And when it comes to the G1 lore, well, as much as I love Transformers, I'm a Beast Wars fan. But seeing all these mentions of the different types of lore, Seacons, Sarton's family, all the Cobra Commander's brother, all of this made me want to read it. Made me want to investigate and go, oh, so that's what it is. I mean, for several of these, I actually paused the recording, went to the G.I. Joe wiki to look these people up and find out who they were before I came back to do some more reading. And what I read, again, of course, interested me. And that's another thing you should always do in a good crossover, is that even if you don't know what they're talking about, you should be able to learn where they came from and should be interested in actually wanting to see it. And that's what he does well in here. Actually, I think that's what he does well for all of this. And this fic also has been well written. Yeah, there are some spelling errors here and there, and sometimes he refers to a guy as a girl. But you know what? after Von Doom, I think I can take it. A few ground glares, no problem. But the rest of the story, it's awesome. And it serves as a very, very well done, an excellent prequel to what is turning out to be an excellent story in elements of harmony and Savior Worlds. I know what you're thinking. This wasn't much of a prequel, but you know what? I consider it a good prelude, an explanation of why I like this universe. So, thank you, RK, for giving us such an excellent fic.
Excuse me, Mr. Art User.
Yeah?
Well,
Problems, Trixie?
well, it's just that, well, me and Cobra Commander and Starscream are having a little discussion.
Discussion about what?
Well, we were thinking that some of the people in this in this room and studio think we sound alike.
Sound like?
Yes! Cobra Commander. Yes, everybody here thinks that I sound exactly like Cobra Commander, and I sound like Trixie, and Trixie sounds exactly like them. Only difference is you changed the pitch.
Well, this is ludicrous, guys. I would never be so cheap as to just do one voice and just change the pitch a little for each one of you guys. You all three sound different.
Really, you think? I personally don't see what's so same about us. I mean, I'm obviously different from him, and I am obviously different from her. Right. So, anybody else want to go grab a burger? Right.
And this is why I don't work with these people. Well, tomorrow, guys, I'll have a little trailer for what's next on Fandom Fridays. Right now, I hope you enjoyed these past 2 hours.